Becoming emotionally unbreakable. How to protect your peace in love and life. By T.M. Light. Description: Becoming emotionally unbreakable. How to protect your peace in love and life is a powerful self-help guide designed to help readers build emotional resilience, heal from heartbreak, overcome emotional dependence, and create lasting inner peace. Through practical insights and motivational lessons, this book explores emotional healing, self-worth, healthy boundaries, mental strength, and relationship balance. Readers will learn how to stop overthinking, protect their emotional energy, recover from toxic relationships, and develop unshakable confidence. Perfect for anyone seeking personal growth, emotional stability, and peace of mind, this inspiring book empowers readers to stay strong, love wisely, and thrive emotionally in every area of life. Chapter Outline. Introduction: The strength nobody can take from you. Chapter 1. Understanding emotional vulnerability. Chapter 2. Stop giving people the power to control your emotions. Chapter 3. Healing the emotional wounds that keep you fragile. Chapter 4. Mastering your mind before it masters you. Chapter 5. Building boundaries that protect your peace. Chapter 6. Becoming strong without becoming cold. Chapter 7. Protecting your peace in relationships. Chapter 8. Letting go without falling apart. Chapter 9. Creating a peaceful inner life. Chapter 10. Becoming emotionally unbreakable. Conclusion: Your peace is your power. Introduction: The strength nobody can take from you. There comes a moment in life when you realize that pain is not just something you feel in your heart. It reaches into every corner of your existence. Emotional pain changes the way you think, the way you sleep, the way you trust, and even the way you see yourself. A broken heart can drain your motivation. Betrayal can make you question your worth. Rejection can silence your confidence. Disappointment can slowly convince you to stop expecting good things from life altogether. Many people walk through life carrying invisible wounds that nobody else can see. Some smile while silently battling anxiety. Some continue loving others while feeling empty inside. Some appear strong on the outside while emotionally collapsing behind closed doors. The truth is that emotional pain is one of the heaviest burdens a person can carry because it touches every part of life. When your emotional world is unstable, your peace disappears, your confidence weakens, your relationships suffer, and your ability to enjoy life slowly fades. This is why emotional strength matters more than most people realize. Unfortunately, many people misunderstand what true strength looks like. Society often teaches that strong people do not cry, do not feel deeply, and do not let anything affect them. People are taught to believe that becoming emotionally strong means becoming cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. But that is not strength. That is self-protection born from pain. Real emotional strength is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to feel deeply without allowing your emotions to destroy you. It is the ability to experience heartbreak without losing your identity. It is the ability to face rejection without believing you are worthless. It is the ability to go through storms without becoming bitter toward life. Sensitivity is not weakness. In fact, some of the most compassionate, loving, and emotionally aware people are also the strongest. Weakness is not feeling emotions. Weakness is allowing every disappointment, every opinion, every betrayal, and every difficult moment to control your entire life. There is a difference between having emotions and being ruled by them. Life has a way of shaping people through painful experiences. Heartbreak changes people. Betrayal changes people. Rejection changes people. Disappointment changes people. Sometimes these experiences make people wiser and stronger. Other times they make people fearful, guarded, and emotionally exhausted. The difference lies in whether a person heals or remains trapped inside their pain. Many people never truly recover emotionally because they spend years avoiding their wounds instead of healing them. Some distract themselves with work, relationships, social media, or constant busyness. Others pretend they are fine while silently carrying anger, sadness, insecurity, or fear. But ignored pain does not disappear. It grows quietly beneath the surface and eventually affects every part of life. Unhealed emotional pain can damage relationships, destroy self-esteem, increase anxiety, create emotional dependency, and leave people constantly searching for peace in places where it cannot be found. It can make someone overreact to small situations because deeper wounds were never addressed. It can make someone afraid to trust again because betrayal taught them that love is dangerous. It can make someone desperate for approval because rejection convinced them they are not enough. The hidden cost of emotional instability is enormous. It steals joy from the present moment. It turns relationships into emotional battlegrounds. It creates fear where there should be peace. It causes people to lose themselves while trying to hold on to others. Worst of all, it can make people believe that emotional chaos is normal. But peace was never meant to be rare in your life. Protecting your peace has become one of the most important skills you can develop in today's world. Every day people are surrounded by stress, negativity, pressure, comparison, criticism, emotional manipulation, and constant distractions. Many people are emotionally overwhelmed not because they are weak, but because they never learned how to protect their inner world. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Not every conflict deserves your reaction. Emotional maturity is learning what to carry and what to release. It is learning that your peace is valuable and should not be sacrificed just to please others or avoid discomfort. One of the most powerful truths you will discover throughout this book is that emotional resilience is not something people are born with. Nobody enters life emotionally unbreakable. Emotional strength is built through healing, self-awareness, discipline, boundaries, and growth. It is developed every time you choose peace over chaos, wisdom over impulse, and self-respect over emotional desperation. You do not become emotionally strong overnight. You become emotionally strong through experiences that teach you resilience, through heartbreak that teaches you self-worth, through disappointment that teaches you endurance, through loss that teaches you perspective, through pain that teaches you how powerful you truly are. There is strength inside you that difficult seasons have not destroyed. In fact, some of the hardest moments of your life may become the very moments that shape your emotional freedom. This book is designed to help you reclaim that freedom. As you move through these chapters, you will learn how to stop giving people control over your emotions. You will discover how to heal emotional wounds that continue affecting your present life. You will learn how to set boundaries without guilt, manage your thoughts without becoming overwhelmed, and protect your peace without shutting your heart down completely. You will also learn that becoming emotionally unbreakable does not mean becoming perfect. You will still feel emotions. You will still face challenges. You will still experience painful moments. But instead of collapsing every time life becomes difficult, you will develop the ability to remain grounded, confident, and emotionally secure even during hard seasons. The goal is not to become heartless. The goal is to become whole. There is a version of you that no longer begs for validation, no longer loses sleep over rejection, no longer sacrifices peace to keep others comfortable, and no longer falls apart because of things beyond your control. That version of you is not imaginary. That version of you is waiting to be developed. This journey is about becoming the safest place for yourself. It is about learning that your value does not decrease because someone failed to appreciate you. It is about understanding that peace is more powerful than approval. It is about finally realizing that no matter what happens around you, there is strength within you that nobody can take away. That strength begins now. Chapter 1: Understanding Emotional Vulnerability. Emotional vulnerability is one of the most misunderstood parts of the human experience. Many people hear the word vulnerable and immediately associate it with weakness, instability, or emotional fragility. They imagine someone who cries too easily, trusts too quickly, or falls apart under pressure. But emotional vulnerability is not weakness. It is simply the openness of the human heart. It is the reality that as human beings we feel deeply, love deeply, hope deeply, and sometimes hurt deeply. The real problem is not vulnerability itself. The real problem begins when emotional wounds are left unhealed, and life experiences slowly convince people that they are unsafe emotionally. Over time, unresolved pain can make a person feel emotionally overwhelmed by situations that others seem to handle easily. A small rejection may feel devastating. A disagreement may feel like abandonment. Criticism may feel like proof of worthlessness. In those moments, people are not only reacting to the present situation. They are reacting to years of emotional conditioning, hidden fears, and past pain that still lives inside them. Understanding emotional vulnerability is one of the most important steps toward emotional freedom, because you cannot heal what you refuse to understand. Many people spend years blaming themselves for being too emotional, without realizing there are deeper reasons behind their reactions. This chapter is not about judging your emotional struggles. It is about helping you understand them, so you can finally begin to overcome them. Every person enters the world emotionally open. Children are naturally trusting, expressive, and emotionally honest. They cry when hurt, laugh when happy, and seek comfort when afraid. But as life unfolds, experiences begin shaping emotional patterns. Some children grow up in environments where they feel loved, supported, heard, and emotionally safe. Others grow up feeling criticized, ignored, rejected, or emotionally abandoned. These early experiences quietly influence how people see themselves and how they relate to others later in life. Childhood conditioning has more power than many people realize. A child who constantly feels rejected may grow into an adult who fears abandonment in relationships. A child who was criticized harshly may become an adult who constantly seeks validation and fears failure. A child who never felt emotionally safe may struggle to trust people, even when love is genuine. These patterns often continue unconsciously, because emotional wounds do not disappear simply because time passes. Many adults are still carrying emotional beliefs they developed as children. Some secretly believe they are not good enough. Some believe love must be earned through perfection. Some believe vulnerability is dangerous, because openness once led to pain. Others believe they must constantly please people to avoid rejection. These beliefs become emotional prisons that shape thoughts, decisions, relationships, and reactions. The painful part is that many people do not even realize these patterns exist. They simply live with anxiety, insecurity, overthinking, emotional dependence, or fear, without understanding where it comes from. They judge themselves harshly for being sensitive, without realizing their emotional reactions are often connected to experiences they never healed from. Fear plays a major role in emotional vulnerability. One of the deepest fears people carry is the fear of abandonment. Human beings are wired for connection, which is why rejection and emotional loss can feel so painful. When someone important leaves, withdraws emotionally, or betrays trust, it can create deep emotional wounds. For some people, This fear becomes so strong that they constantly worry about losing the people they love. They may overanalyze messages, become emotionally clingy, tolerate unhealthy behavior, or lose themselves trying to keep relationships alive. The fear of rejection is equally powerful. Rejection affects more than emotions, it affects identity. It can make people question their worth, attractiveness, intelligence, or value as a person. Some people become so afraid of rejection that they avoid opportunities, hide their true feelings, or settle for less than they deserve just to avoid being alone. They would rather remain in unhealthy situations than face the emotional pain of being unwanted. Then there is the fear of failure. Many people tie their entire self-worth to success, achievement, or approval. When things go wrong, they do not simply feel disappointed, they feel worthless. Failure becomes personal instead of temporary. This emotional pressure creates anxiety, perfectionism, and constant self-criticism. People begin living in fear of making mistakes, instead of confidently embracing growth. These fears do not develop overnight. They are often rooted in painful experiences that taught people to associate emotional pain with danger. Once the mind learns that certain situations may lead to hurt, it becomes protective. It begins creating emotional defense mechanisms designed to prevent future pain. Some people become emotionally distant. Some become controlling. Some become overly dependent. Some stop trusting others altogether. Emotional wounds have a powerful influence on adult relationships. Unhealed pain often shows up in love long before people recognize it. Someone who experienced abandonment may panic when their partner becomes distant. Someone who experienced betrayal may struggle with trust even in healthy relationships. Someone who grew up without emotional support may constantly seek reassurance because deep down, they fear they are not lovable enough. This is why relationships sometimes trigger intense emotional reactions that seem larger than the situation itself. The present moment awakens old emotional pain that was never fully processed. A simple disagreement may reopen childhood feelings of rejection. A delayed text message may trigger fears of abandonment. Criticism may awaken old wounds connected to feeling inadequate. Many people mistakenly believe they are crazy or too emotional, when in reality they are emotionally wounded. Their reactions are often connected to pain that has been buried for years. Understanding this truth is important because self-awareness creates compassion. When you begin understanding why you react the way you do, healing becomes possible. Another reason emotional vulnerability affects some people more deeply than others is emotional absorption. Some individuals naturally absorb the emotions and energy around them. They feel affected by negativity, tension, criticism, or conflict more intensely than others do. These people are often highly empathetic and emotionally aware. While empathy is a beautiful quality, it can also become emotionally exhausting when boundaries are weak. People who absorb negativity easily often struggle to separate their emotions from the emotions of others. They may carry other people's stress, sadness, anger, or problems as if those burdens belong to them. They may feel emotionally drained after certain conversations or environments without understanding why. Over time, constantly absorbing emotional negativity can create anxiety, exhaustion, and emotional instability. This does not mean there is something wrong with being emotionally sensitive. Sensitivity is not a flaw. Some of the kindest, wisest, and most compassionate people are deeply sensitive. The key is learning how to protect your emotional energy without losing your ability to care. One of the greatest skills you can develop is learning to recognize your emotional triggers. Triggers are emotional reactions connected to deeper wounds or fears. They are the moments when your emotions suddenly become intense, overwhelming, or difficult to control. A trigger may come from a tone of voice, a certain behavior, criticism, silence, rejection, or conflict. Often, triggers reveal unresolved emotional pain that needs healing. Instead of feeling ashamed of your triggers, begin observing them with honesty. Ask yourself why certain situations affect you so deeply. Ask yourself what fear lies beneath your emotional reactions. Sometimes anger is actually hurt. Sometimes jealousy is rooted in insecurity. Sometimes emotional dependence is rooted in fear of abandonment. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful forms of emotional strength, because it allows you to understand yourself instead of constantly being controlled by unconscious patterns. Most people go through life reacting automatically, without ever examining the deeper causes of their emotions. They blame others for every emotional struggle, while ignoring the internal wounds influencing their reactions. But emotionally strong people are willing to look inward. They are willing to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. They recognize that healing begins with awareness. You cannot change emotional patterns you refuse to acknowledge. Self-awareness does not mean blaming yourself for your pain. It means taking responsibility for your healing. It means recognizing that while you may not be responsible for what hurt you, you are responsible for how you move forward. Your past may explain your wounds, but it does not have to define your future. This is where transformation begins. The moment you begin understanding your emotional patterns, you stop being powerless against them. You begin recognizing when fear is speaking instead of truth. You begin separating past pain from present reality. You begin responding consciously instead of reacting emotionally. Little by little, you start reclaiming control over your emotional world. Healing emotional vulnerability does not happen by pretending you are unaffected by life. It happens by learning how to face your emotions without being destroyed by them. It happens by creating emotional safety within yourself instead of depending entirely on others for stability. It happens when you stop abandoning yourself emotionally in order to gain love, approval, or acceptance. There is nothing weak about acknowledging your emotional wounds. In fact, facing your pain requires enormous courage. Denial may feel easier temporarily, but healing creates freedom. Every moment of self-awareness brings you closer to emotional strength. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to become emotionally grounded. There is a difference. Emotionless people disconnect from life. Emotionally grounded people remain connected to life without allowing emotions to control them completely. You are not broken because you feel deeply. You are human. Your sensitivity does not disqualify you from strength. Your past does not disqualify you from peace. Your emotional wounds do not disqualify you from love, confidence, or healing. In many ways, the struggles you have faced emotionally may eventually become the source of your greatest wisdom. Pain has a way of teaching lessons comfort never could. The heartbreaks, disappointments, betrayals, and fears you survived have already proven something important about you. You are stronger than you think. Understanding your emotional vulnerability is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of your transformation. Once you understand the roots of your emotions, you can begin building the emotional resilience that nobody can take away from you. Chapter 2. Stop giving people the power to control your emotions. One of the greatest mistakes people make in life is placing their emotional peace in the hands of others. They allow someone else's words to determine their confidence. They allow someone else's approval to determine their self-worth. They allow someone else's behavior to decide whether they feel valuable, lovable, secure, or enough. Without realizing it, They slowly hand over control of their emotional world to people who were never meant to carry that responsibility. This happens more often than most people realize. Many individuals wake up emotionally dependent on the reactions, opinions, validation and attention of others. A compliment makes them feel worthy. Silence makes them feel rejected. Praise gives them confidence. Criticism destroys their self-esteem. When people accept them, they feel secure. When people pull away, they feel emotionally unstable. Living this way is exhausting because it forces your peace to depend on things you cannot control. Other people's moods change. Their opinions change. Their feelings change. Their attention changes. If your emotional stability depends entirely on external validation, your peace will constantly rise and fall based on the unpredictable behavior of others. True emotional strength begins the moment you stop giving people the power to control how you feel about yourself. Many people do not realize how deeply approval addiction affects their emotional lives. Approval addiction is the constant need to feel accepted, validated, appreciated, or admired in order to feel emotionally secure. It develops quietly over time, often beginning in childhood. Some people learned very early that love, praise or attention had to be earned through performance, perfection, obedience or pleasing others. As adults, they continue searching for validation because deep down they still fear not being enough. People who struggle with approval addiction often become emotionally drained because they are constantly monitoring how others perceive them. They overthink conversations. They replay interactions in their minds. They fear disappointing people. They struggle to say no because they are afraid of rejection or conflict. They become emotionally attached to praise and emotionally devastated by criticism. The dangerous part about approval addiction is that it places your identity in the hands of other people. When your confidence depends on external validation, you become emotionally vulnerable to anyone capable of giving or withholding approval. This creates emotional instability because your self-worth is no longer rooted within you. It becomes dependent on outside opinions. The truth is that no amount of validation from other people will ever permanently heal insecurity that exists within. You can receive compliments every day and still feel empty if you do not genuinely value yourself. You can be loved deeply by others and still struggle with self-worth if you have not learned to love yourself. External praise may temporarily soothe insecurity, but lasting emotional security must come from within. Validation itself is not wrong. Every human being appreciates love, encouragement, and support. The problem begins when validation becomes a necessity instead of a bonus. The moment you believe your value depends on how others treat you, you give away emotional power that belongs to you. This is why emotionally manipulative people often target those who depend heavily on external validation. Emotional manipulation works by controlling someone's emotions through guilt, fear, affection, criticism, withdrawal, or inconsistency. Manipulative individuals understand that emotionally dependent people are easier to control because their self-worth is tied to approval and acceptance. In unhealthy relationships, manipulation can appear in many forms. Sometimes it comes through guilt. A person may make you feel selfish for setting boundaries or prioritizing your needs. Sometimes it comes through emotional withdrawal, where affection or attention is withheld to create insecurity and emotional desperation. Other times manipulation comes through constant criticism, designed to weaken confidence and increase dependency. People who are emotionally dependent often tolerate unhealthy treatment because they fear losing connection more than they value protecting their peace. They stay in relationships that drain them emotionally because they believe being unwanted would hurt more than being mistreated. They shrink themselves to keep others comfortable. They silence their feelings to avoid conflict. They sacrifice emotional health in exchange for temporary acceptance. This is not love. This is emotional captivity. One of the biggest emotional traps people fall into is people-pleasing. At first glance, people-pleasing may appear kind, selfless, or generous. But underneath it is often fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of abandonment. Fear of disappointing others. Many people-pleasers are not simply trying to be nice. They are trying to secure love, acceptance, or safety by making everyone else happy. The problem is that people-pleasing slowly disconnects you from yourself. You become so focused on meeting everyone else's expectations that you stop listening to your own needs, emotions, and boundaries. You say yes when you want to say no. You tolerate disrespect to avoid tension. You overextend yourself emotionally until exhaustion becomes normal. Over time, resentment begins to grow because deep down you know you are abandoning yourself in order to maintain approval from others. The painful irony is that the more people-pleasers sacrifice themselves for acceptance, the more emotionally empty they often become. There is nothing healthy about constantly betraying your own peace to keep others comfortable. You were not created to spend your entire life earning your worth through performance, perfection, or approval. Your value does not increase because someone praises you, and it does not decrease because someone criticizes you. Other people's opinions may reflect their perspective, preferences, wounds, or limitations, but they do not define your identity. One of the most freeing moments in life is realizing that not everyone will approve of you, and that is perfectly okay. Some people will misunderstand you. Some people will judge you unfairly. Some people will dislike you no matter how kind, loving, or genuine you are. Trying to control everyone's perception of you is emotionally exhausting and ultimately impossible. Emotionally strong people understand this truth. They no longer build their identity around external opinions. They know who they are, even when others fail to recognize their value. They stop chasing acceptance from people who are committed to misunderstanding them. They stop shrinking themselves to fit into spaces that require self-betrayal. Detaching your worth from other people's opinions is not arrogance. It is emotional freedom. This does not mean you become careless or insensitive. It means you stop allowing every comment, rejection, criticism, or disappointment to determine your emotional state. You begin developing internal stability instead of depending entirely on external reassurance. The truth is that people will always have opinions. Some will praise you, while others criticize you for the exact same thing. If you constantly seek emotional security through public approval, you will spend your life emotionally confused and unstable. Peace becomes possible when you stop chasing universal acceptance and start building genuine self-respect. One of the most important lessons you can learn is that you are responsible for your emotional responses. This truth can feel uncomfortable because it challenges the habit of blaming others for every emotional struggle. While people can hurt you, disappoint you, betray you, or trigger emotional pain, your healing begins when you stop allowing those experiences to completely control your inner world. Taking responsibility for your emotional responses means recognizing that although you cannot control everything that happens around you, you can control how you respond. You can choose whether to react impulsively or respond with wisdom. You can choose whether to internalize negativity or release it. You can choose whether to allow pain to harden you or strengthen you. Emotionally immature people expect the world to constantly adjust itself to protect their feelings. Emotionally mature people develop the inner strength to navigate difficult situations without losing themselves. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending pain does not exist. It means learning how to process emotions without becoming consumed by them. There is enormous power in emotional self-control. When you stop reacting emotionally to everything people say or do, you become far more difficult to manipulate. People lose the ability to disturb your peace so easily. You stop giving strangers access to your emotional stability. You stop carrying every negative interaction into the rest of your day. This level of emotional independence changes your life. Emotional independence does not mean you stop loving people or needing human connection. It simply means your happiness, worth, and identity are no longer completely dependent on someone else's presence, approval, or behavior. You enjoy love without losing yourself inside it. You appreciate relationships without making them the sole source of your emotional stability. Emotionally independent people know how to comfort themselves during difficult moments. They know how to validate their own feelings instead of constantly seeking reassurance from others. They know how to stand alone without feeling worthless. They know how to walk away from unhealthy situations because they value peace more than emotional attachment. Developing emotional independence requires courage because it forces you to confront fears you may have avoided for years. It requires learning how to be alone without feeling abandoned. It requires trusting your own judgment instead of constantly depending on approval. It requires believing you are enough, even when external validation is absent. This journey is not easy, but it is life-changing. The more emotionally independent you become, the less control other people have over your inner world. Their praise no longer inflates your ego, and their criticism no longer destroys your confidence. You become emotionally grounded. You stop chasing people who do not value you. You stop begging for love that requires self-sacrifice. You stop abandoning yourself emotionally just to avoid loneliness. You begin choosing relationships from a place of strength instead of desperation. One of the greatest signs of emotional growth is when you no longer need constant reassurance to feel secure. You trust yourself. You trust your worth. You trust your ability to survive disappointment without falling apart. You no longer panic every time someone pulls away, because your identity is no longer built entirely around external connection. This is where real peace begins. You must understand that your emotions are valuable, but they should not be controlled by every person who enters your life. Not everyone deserves that level of influence over your mental and emotional well-being. Your peace is too precious to hand over carelessly. There will always be people who misunderstand you, disappoint you, or fail to appreciate your value. But their inability to recognize your worth does not reduce it. You do not need to chase validation from people who cannot see your heart clearly. You do not need to destroy yourself trying to prove your value to those committed to overlooking it. The strongest people are not those who never feel pain. The strongest people are those who refuse to let pain control their identity. They feel emotions deeply, without becoming emotionally imprisoned by them. They love without losing themselves. They face rejection without surrendering their self-worth. They protect their peace without becoming cold. That kind of strength is available to you too. Every time you choose self-respect over approval, every time you set a healthy boundary, every time you stop seeking validation from the wrong people, and every time you take responsibility for your emotional healing, you reclaim another piece of your emotional freedom. And little by little, you become emotionally unbreakable. Chapter 3: Healing the emotional wounds that keep you fragile. There are wounds in life that cannot be seen with the eyes. No bandage covers them. No caste reveals their existence. Yet these invisible wounds shape the way people think, love, trust, react, and see themselves every single day. Emotional wounds have the power to quietly influence an entire life, while remaining hidden beneath smiles, routines, achievements, and distractions. Many people are walking through life, carrying pain they never truly healed from. They learned how to function, but they never learned how to heal. They became experts at surviving, while secretly remaining emotionally fragile inside. This is why certain words hurt more than they should. This is why some people panic when relationships change. This is why criticism feels unbearable, rejection feels devastating, and abandonment feels like emotional destruction. Unhealed pain does not simply disappear because time passes. Pain that is ignored often becomes buried alive. It settles deep within the heart, and continues affecting thoughts, emotions, relationships, and self-worth for years. Some people become emotionally reactive, without understanding why. Others become emotionally numb, because they are exhausted from carrying unresolved pain for too long. Healing is necessary, because emotional wounds that remain unaddressed will continue controlling your life from the shadows. One of the clearest signs of unhealed emotional trauma is emotional overreaction. Sometimes people respond to situations with levels of fear, anger, sadness, or anxiety that seem far bigger than the present moment. This often happens because current situations trigger deeper emotional wounds connected to past experiences. A person who was constantly rejected may feel devastated by small criticism. A person who experienced abandonment may panic when someone becomes distant. A person who endured betrayal may struggle to trust even loyal people. The reaction is not only about the current situation. It is connected to emotional pain that was never fully processed or healed. Trauma changes the nervous system. It teaches the mind and body to remain alert for danger, even when danger is no longer present. Emotional wounds create emotional sensitivity, because the heart remembers what hurt it before. Once pain becomes familiar, the mind begins trying to protect itself from future suffering. Unfortunately, this protection often turns into fear, anxiety, overthinking, emotional avoidance, or unhealthy attachment. Many people blame themselves for their emotional reactions, without realizing their responses are connected to unresolved pain. They call themselves weak, dramatic, insecure, or broken when in reality they are emotionally wounded. There is a difference. Understanding this truth is important because healing begins with compassion, not shame. You cannot heal while constantly attacking yourself for struggling emotionally. You heal by becoming honest about your pain and giving yourself permission to address it, instead of pretending it no longer affects you. Toxic relationships are one of the deepest sources of emotional wounds. Relationships have the power to either strengthen emotional health or slowly destroy it. When someone repeatedly experiences manipulation, criticism, betrayal, emotional neglect, dishonesty, or emotional inconsistency, those experiences leave scars behind. Some relationships drain confidence little by little, until a person no longer recognizes themselves. A toxic partner may constantly criticize, control, dismiss feelings, or create emotional confusion. Over time, the person being hurt begins doubting their instincts, questioning their worth, and feeling emotionally unstable. They may become anxious, insecure, emotionally dependent, or fearful of abandonment. The painful part about toxic relationships is that emotional damage often happens gradually. Many people do not realize how deeply they have been hurt until the relationship ends, and they are left trying to rebuild themselves emotionally. They may carry fear into future relationships. They may struggle with trust. They may constantly expect disappointment, because pain taught them to associate love with suffering. Emotional wounds from toxic relationships do not only affect romance. Family relationships, friendships, and even workplace environments can create emotional scars. Any environment where a person consistently feels unloved, disrespected, emotionally unsafe, or unworthy can leave lasting emotional damage. Betrayal is another wound that cuts deeply into the human heart. Few experiences hurt more than being hurt by someone you trusted. Betrayal destroys more than connection. It damages safety. It creates emotional confusion, because the person who once brought comfort becomes the source of pain. Betrayal makes people question their judgment, their worth, and sometimes even their ability to trust themselves. Heartbreak carries a similar pain. When relationships end, people often grieve more than the loss of a person. They grieve the future they imagined, the emotional safety they believed existed, and the version of themselves that existed before the pain. Heartbreak can make people emotionally guarded, because once the heart has been shattered, vulnerability begins to feel dangerous. Abandonment leaves another kind of wound. Whether physical or emotional, abandonment creates the painful feeling of being left behind, forgotten, or unworthy of staying for. People who carry abandonment wounds often develop intense fears of rejection or loneliness. They may become emotionally attached quickly, tolerate unhealthy treatment, or struggle to feel secure in relationships. Rejection also leaves deep emotional scars because it attacks identity. It creates questions many people secretly carry for years. Why was I not enough? What is wrong with me? Why was I not chosen? These questions slowly shape self-worth when rejection remains unhealed. The tragedy is that many people never truly process these painful experiences. Instead, they suppress them. Suppression may look like strength temporarily, but ignored pain does not disappear. In fact, suppressed pain often becomes stronger. Emotions that are constantly buried eventually surface in other ways. They appear through anxiety, anger, emotional numbness, overthinking, depression, insecurity, irritability, or emotional exhaustion. Many people were taught that expressing emotions is weakness. They learn to hide sadness, suppress tears, and pretend they are unaffected by pain. But emotions do not disappear simply because they are ignored. Suppressed pain becomes emotional pressure inside the body and mind. Over time, carrying unresolved emotions becomes exhausting. Healing requires honesty. You cannot heal wounds you refuse to acknowledge. There is strength in allowing yourself to feel what you have been avoiding. Grief must be processed. Anger must be understood. Sadness must be released. Fear must be confronted. Emotional healing is not about pretending pain never happened. It is about learning how to move through pain without allowing it to define your identity forever. One of the hardest parts of healing is forgiveness. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Many people believe forgiveness means excusing harmful behavior, forgetting what happened, or allowing toxic people back into their lives. But true forgiveness is something very different. Forgiveness is releasing the emotional poison of resentment, so it no longer controls your peace. It is choosing freedom over bitterness. It is refusing to allow past pain to keep occupying emotional space inside your heart forever. Forgiveness does not mean what happened was acceptable. It does not erase accountability. It does not require reconciliation. Some people can be forgiven without being welcomed back into your life. This distinction is important because many people remain trapped emotionally because they confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. Reconciliation requires trust, accountability, change, and emotional safety from both sides. Forgiveness, however, is an internal decision to stop carrying emotional chains connected to past hurt. You can forgive someone and still choose distance. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. You can release bitterness while also honoring your boundaries. Healing also requires healthy emotional processing. This means learning how to experience emotions without being consumed by them. Healthy emotional processing involves awareness, honesty, reflection, and release. Instead of suppressing pain or reacting impulsively, emotionally healthy people learn how to sit with emotions, understand them, and move through them constructively. Sometimes healing requires talking to someone trustworthy. Sometimes it requires journaling painful thoughts honestly. Sometimes it requires solitude and reflection. Sometimes it requires therapy, prayer, meditation, or simply allowing yourself to grieve fully instead of rushing the process. Healing is not linear. Some days you will feel strong. Other days old pain may resurface unexpectedly. This does not mean you are failing. Emotional healing happens in layers. Every time you process pain honestly, instead of avoiding it, you grow stronger emotionally. One of the most important parts of healing is rebuilding self-worth after emotional damage. Painful experiences often distort identity. Toxic relationships, rejection, betrayal, and criticism can slowly convince people they are unworthy, unlovable, or not enough. Over time, emotional wounds begin shaping self-perception. But your pain is not your identity. What happened to you may have hurt you deeply, but it does not define your value. Someone's betrayal does not mean you are unworthy of loyalty. Someone's rejection does not mean you are unlovable. Someone's inability to see your value does not decrease your worth. Rebuilding self-worth requires learning to separate your identity from the painful experiences you survived. It means recognizing that your mistakes, heartbreaks, and disappointments are chapters of your story, not the definition of who you are. This process often begins by changing the way you speak to yourself. Many emotionally wounded people become their own harshest critics. They replay failures constantly. They blame themselves endlessly. They speak to themselves with cruelty they would never direct towards someone they love. Healing requires a new relationship with yourself. You must begin treating yourself with compassion instead of constant judgment. You must stop measuring your worth by who stayed, who left, who hurt you, or who failed to appreciate you. There is enormous strength in rebuilding yourself after emotional pain. Every scar you carry tells the story of survival. Every painful experience you endured without giving up reveals resilience you may not even recognize yet. Sometimes people believe healing means returning to who they were before the pain. But healing often creates something even stronger. It creates wisdom. It creates emotional awareness. It creates discernment. It creates boundaries. It creates strength that innocence alone could never produce. You are not meant to stay emotionally fragile forever. The wounds that once controlled you can become the very places where emotional strength is born. The heartbreak that nearly destroyed you can teach you self-worth. The betrayal that shattered your trust can teach you discernment. The rejection that once made you question your value can teach you how to value yourself independently of external approval. Pain changes people, but healing transforms them. There is a version of you that no longer lives trapped by past wounds. A version of you that no longer panics at every sign of disappointment. A version of you that trusts yourself, protects your peace, and refuses to abandon your worth for love or acceptance. That version of you is created through healing. Healing is not weakness. Healing is courage. It is the decision to confront pain instead of hiding from it. It is the willingness to feel deeply without allowing pain to harden your heart permanently. It is the choice to keep growing even after life wounded you. No matter how broken you may have felt, healing is possible. No matter how deeply you were hurt, Your future is not doomed to repeat your past. Emotional wounds may explain your struggles, but they do not have to control the rest of your life. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to become emotionally whole again. And as you continue healing, you will slowly discover something powerful. The pain that once made you fragile can eventually become the foundation of your emotional strength. Chapter 4: Mastering your mind before it masters you. The mind is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It can become a place of peace, clarity, confidence, and emotional strength, or it can become a prison filled with fear, anxiety, negativity, and emotional chaos. Long before people lose battles externally, they often lose battles internally. A person may appear fine on the outside, while silently fighting exhausting mental wars within themselves every single day. The truth is that your mind shapes your emotional world more than you may realize. The way you think affects the way you feel. The way you interpret situations affects the emotions you experience. Thoughts create emotional reactions, and repeated thoughts eventually create emotional patterns. If your mind constantly feeds fear, insecurity, negativity, and worst-case scenarios, your emotional peace will slowly disappear. This is why mastering your mind is one of the most important parts of becoming emotionally unbreakable. Many people spend years trying to change their emotions without addressing the thoughts creating those emotions. They focus only on feelings, while ignoring the mental habits producing emotional instability. But emotions do not appear out of nowhere. They are often connected to beliefs, interpretations, assumptions, and thought patterns running through the mind daily. Imagine someone who constantly thinks, "I am not good enough." That single belief can create insecurity, fear of rejection, anxiety in relationships, and emotional dependence. A person who constantly thinks, "Something bad is going to happen," may live in a state of constant stress and fear. Someone who believes, "People always leave," may become emotionally guarded or overly attached in relationships. Thoughts are powerful because the mind responds to what it repeatedly hears. Over time, repeated negative thinking begins shaping emotional reality. This is why emotionally unhealthy thought patterns can slowly steal confidence, joy, peace, and stability. One of the most common mental struggles people face is overthinking. Overthinking is the habit of mentally replaying situations, analyzing conversations endlessly, worrying excessively about outcomes, and searching for certainty in situations where certainty may not exist. It is exhausting because the mind never truly rests. People who overthink often believe they are solving problems, but most of the time they are simply feeding anxiety. They replay painful memories repeatedly. They imagine conversations that never happen. They create problems in their minds before problems even exist. They search for hidden meanings in every interaction. A delayed response becomes rejection. A small disagreement becomes proof that a relationship is ending. Silence becomes danger. The mind becomes trapped in endless loops of fear and analysis. Overthinking drains emotional energy because the brain treats imagined threats as if they are real. Even when nothing dangerous is happening physically, the body reacts emotionally to the stress created by anxious thinking. This is why overthinking often leads to emotional exhaustion, sleeplessness, irritability, and constant mental tension. Many people lose peace not because of what is happening in reality, but because of what is happening in their minds. One of the most destructive forms of overthinking is catastrophizing. Catastrophizing happens when the mind automatically assumes the worst possible outcome. Instead of considering balanced possibilities, the brain jumps immediately toward fear, disaster, rejection, or failure. A small mistake becomes, "Everything is ruined." A difficult conversation becomes, "This relationship is over." A setback becomes, my future is hopeless. One disappointment becomes, nothing ever works out for me. Catastrophizing creates emotional suffering, long before reality even unfolds. The mind begins living inside imagined disasters, and the body responds with real anxiety. Over time, people trapped in worst-case thinking lose the ability to enjoy the present, because they are constantly anticipating pain. The dangerous part is that the mind often believes it is protecting you by preparing for the worst. But constantly expecting disaster does not protect peace. It destroys it. Living in a state of mental fear prevents emotional stability, because the nervous system never feels safe enough to relax. Anxiety grows powerfully in minds that constantly predict danger. Anxiety is one of the greatest thieves of peace in modern life. It steals sleep, focus, confidence, joy, and emotional balance. It keeps people trapped in fear about things that may never happen. It turns ordinary situations into emotional battles. It convinces people they are unsafe, even when no immediate danger exists. Many people struggling with anxiety feel emotionally overwhelmed because their minds rarely slow down. Their thoughts race constantly. They worry about the future. They replay the past. They fear rejection, failure, embarrassment, loss, disappointment, or uncertainty. Even moments of peace become interrupted by fear that something will eventually go wrong. The painful reality is that anxiety often pulls people out of the present moment entirely. Instead of living life fully, they become trapped inside imagined futures. They stop enjoying today because they are consumed by fears about tomorrow. But peace becomes possible when you begin realizing something important. Not every thought deserves your trust. Many people automatically believe every thought that enters their minds. If the mind says, you will fail, they believe it. If the mind says, nobody cares about you, they accept it as truth. If the mind says, you are not enough, they internalize it emotionally. But thoughts are not always facts. Thoughts are influenced by fears, past wounds, insecurities, experiences, and emotional conditioning. An anxious mind often exaggerates danger. A wounded mind often expects rejection. A fearful mind often imagines failure before opportunities even begin. Learning to question negative thoughts is one of the most powerful emotional skills you can develop. This is where reframing becomes life-changing. Reframing means consciously choosing healthier, more balanced ways of interpreting situations. It does not mean pretending problems do not exist. It means refusing to automatically interpret every situation through fear, hopelessness, or self-destruction. Instead of thinking, I always fail, you begin reminding yourself, I am learning and growing. Instead of, nobody loves me, you recognize, I am worthy of healthy love, even if some relationships did not work out. Instead of, everything is ruined, you begin asking, what can this situation teach me? The way you speak to yourself matters deeply, because your mind listens constantly. Negative self-talk creates emotional instability over time. People who constantly criticize themselves internally often experience higher anxiety, insecurity, and emotional exhaustion. Imagine carrying around a voice inside your mind that attacks you all day long. Eventually, emotional peace becomes impossible. Emotionally strong people learn how to become supportive toward themselves, instead of abusive internally. They develop mental discipline. They notice destructive thoughts without automatically surrendering to them. They interrupt harmful mental patterns before those thoughts spiral into emotional chaos. This process takes practice, because the mind naturally follows familiar patterns. If you have spent years thinking negatively, fearful thinking may feel automatic. But automatic does not mean permanent. The mind can be retrained. Mindfulness plays an important role in this transformation. Mindfulness is the ability to become aware of your thoughts and emotions without immediately becoming controlled by them. Instead of reacting automatically, mindfulness creates space for awareness and conscious response. Many people move through life emotionally unconscious. They react impulsively, without understanding what they are feeling or why. Mindfulness slows this process down. It teaches you to observe emotions, instead of instantly drowning in them. For example, instead of immediately reacting with anger, mindfulness allows you to pause and ask yourself what is happening internally. Is the anger actually fear? Is the reaction connected to an old emotional wound? Is anxiety exaggerating the situation? This awareness creates emotional control. Mindfulness also helps people reconnect with the present moment. Anxiety constantly drags the mind into imagined futures. Depression often pulls the mind into painful memories from the past. Mindfulness brings attention back to now. Peace exists in the present moment, far more than people realize. So much emotional suffering comes from mentally living somewhere else. People relive old pain repeatedly, or fear future problems constantly, while missing the reality that in this exact moment they are okay. Learning how to anchor yourself in the present calms the nervous system and strengthens emotional stability. Training the mind for emotional resilience requires consistency. Just as physical strength develops through repeated exercise, mental strength develops through repeated mental discipline. Every time you challenge a negative thought instead of feeding it, you strengthen emotional control. Every time you interrupt overthinking, you reclaim peace. Every time you choose calm awareness over emotional panic, you build resilience. Emotionally strong people are not people who never experience negative thoughts. They are people who refuse to let negative thoughts completely control their lives. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you feed consistently will grow. If you constantly feed fear, comparison, self-hatred, bitterness and negativity, emotional peace will struggle to survive. But if you begin feeding hope, gratitude, self-awareness, wisdom and emotional balance, your inner world slowly changes. This does not happen overnight. Some days your mind will still wander toward fear. Some days, overthinking will still try to pull you into emotional exhaustion. Some days anxiety may feel loud. But healing is not perfection. Growth is learning how to respond differently little by little. You are stronger than your thoughts. This truth is important because many people become prisoners of their own minds. They believe every fear. They surrender to every insecurity. They allow thoughts to define identity and shape emotional reality completely. But you have more power than you realize. You can train your mind to become calmer. You can learn emotional discipline. You can create healthier thought patterns. You can break free from destructive mental habits that have stolen your peace for years. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is learning how to sit with uncertainty without mentally collapsing. Life will never provide perfect control or constant certainty. There will always be unknowns, risks, disappointments, and unexpected changes. But emotional strength grows when you stop demanding certainty in order to feel safe. Peace does not come from controlling everything around you. Peace comes from learning how to remain emotionally grounded, even when life feels uncertain. This means trusting yourself more deeply. Trusting your ability to survive difficult moments. Trusting your ability to adapt. Trusting that setbacks are not the end of your story. Trusting that painful thoughts do not define your future. The mind becomes healthier when it stops seeing every challenge as a catastrophe and starts seeing challenges as opportunities for growth. Painful seasons may test you, but they can also strengthen you. Difficult moments may stretch you emotionally, but they can also teach resilience, wisdom, and endurance. You are not powerless against your thoughts. You are not doomed to remain trapped in cycles of fear and emotional exhaustion forever. Your mind can become a place of strength instead of suffering. Every peaceful thought you choose matters. Every moment of self-awareness matters. Every decision to challenge negativity instead of surrendering to it matters. Little by little, you begin reclaiming your emotional peace. And eventually you discover one of the most powerful truths of all. When you learn how to master your mind loses the power to master you. Chapter 5. Building boundaries that protect your peace. One of the greatest acts of self-respect you will ever learn is the ability to protect your peace through healthy boundaries. Many people spend years emotionally exhausted, overwhelmed, manipulated, and drained because they never learned that boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are necessary. They are the invisible walls that protect your emotional health, preserve your energy, and teach others how to treat you. Without boundaries, life becomes emotionally chaotic. People begin taking more from you than you can afford to give. Relationships become one-sided. Emotional burnout becomes normal. Stress increases. Resentment grows quietly beneath the surface. Eventually, you may find yourself feeling emotionally depleted, while everyone around you continues benefiting from access to your time, energy, emotions, and peace. The painful truth is that many people were raised to believe that protecting themselves emotionally is wrong. They were taught that saying no is rude, prioritizing their needs is selfish, and creating emotional distance means they are unloving. As a result, they learn to constantly sacrifice themselves for the comfort of others. But constantly abandoning yourself is not kindness. It is emotional self-neglect. Healthy boundaries are not designed to push love away. They are designed to protect emotional well-being, so that love can exist in a healthy, respectful way. Boundaries create emotional safety. They help you maintain balance, peace, dignity, and self-respect in relationships and daily life. Without them, even the strongest people eventually become emotionally overwhelmed. Many people do not realize they have weak emotional boundaries until they begin noticing how exhausted they feel around certain individuals or situations. Weak boundaries often reveal themselves through emotional patterns. Some people feel guilty whenever they say no. Others constantly prioritize everyone else's needs while ignoring their own. Some tolerate disrespect because they fear conflict or rejection. Others feel responsible for fixing everyone's problems, carrying emotional burdens that were never theirs to carry. When boundaries are weak, people begin absorbing stress, negativity, and emotional pressure from everyone around them. They allow other people's moods to determine their peace. They allow manipulation to continue because they fear disappointing others. They say yes when their mind and body are screaming no. Over time, emotional exhaustion becomes a lifestyle. One of the clearest signs of weak emotional boundaries is resentment. Resentment often develops when people continuously give more than they truly want to give. On the outside, they may appear agreeable, helpful, or supportive, but internally they feel drained, frustrated, and emotionally unseen. This happens because they are ignoring their own emotional limits while trying to meet everyone else's expectations. Another sign of weak boundaries is feeling emotionally responsible for other people's happiness. Many individuals believe it is their job to keep everyone emotionally comfortable. They fear upsetting people, disappointing people, or being viewed negatively. As a result, they constantly sacrifice their own peace to avoid conflict. But no human being can carry the emotional responsibility of everyone around them without eventually collapsing under the pressure. Toxic people thrive in environments where boundaries are weak. They often seek access to emotionally giving individuals because they know those people are less likely to resist manipulation, guilt, control, or emotional exploitation. Toxic individuals may constantly criticize, create drama, disrespect limits, invade emotional space, or demand endless emotional attention without considering the impact they have on others. Some toxic people drain emotional energy through negativity. Every conversation becomes heavy, stressful, or emotionally exhausting. Others manipulate through guilt, making you feel selfish for protecting your needs. Some create emotional confusion by being inconsistent, loving one moment and cold the next. Others constantly violate boundaries, while expecting unlimited patience and understanding in return. The dangerous thing about emotional drain is that it often happens gradually. Many people become so used to emotional exhaustion that they stop recognizing how unhealthy certain relationships have become. They normalize stress, tension, anxiety, and emotional depletion because they have lived that way for so long. But peace should not feel unfamiliar in your life. Protecting your energy is one of the most important emotional skills you can develop. Your emotional energy affects your mental health, relationships, focus, confidence, and overall well-being. Constant exposure to negativity, manipulation, criticism, or emotional chaos slowly weakens emotional stability. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to you. This truth can feel uncomfortable for people who are used to prioritizing everyone else first. But emotionally healthy people understand that access to their time, emotions, and peace is a privilege, not an obligation. They become intentional about the environments they stay in, the conversations they entertain, and the people they allow close to their inner world. One of the hardest lessons many people must learn is how to say no without guilt. Saying no becomes difficult when your self-worth is tied to being liked, needed, or approved of by others. Many people fear that setting boundaries will make them appear selfish, difficult, or uncaring. But constantly saying yes at the expense of your mental and emotional health is not healthy love. It is self-abandonment. Every time you say yes to something that destroys your peace, you say no to yourself. Learning to say no is an act of emotional maturity. It means recognizing your limits and honoring them without apology. It means understanding that protecting your mental and emotional well-being is not cruelty. It is responsibility. Some people will not like your boundaries because your boundaries remove access they once benefited from. People who are used to controlling you emotionally may become uncomfortable when you begin protecting yourself. Those who benefited from your lack of boundaries may accuse you of changing. But growth often requires disappointing people who were comfortable with versions of you that lacked self-protection. You are not responsible for making everyone comfortable at the expense of your peace. There is enormous freedom in learning that you can love people without sacrificing yourself for them. You can care deeply while still protecting your emotional health. You can be compassionate without becoming emotionally available for constant mistreatment, manipulation, or disrespect. Boundaries are especially important in relationships because emotional closeness without emotional safety eventually becomes damaging. Love cannot thrive where respect does not exist. Healthy relationships require emotional balance, mutual respect, communication, and consideration for each other's well-being. Protecting your energy in relationships means recognizing when emotional patterns are becoming unhealthy. It means paying attention to how people affect your mental and emotional state. Do you constantly feel anxious around them? Drained? Criticized? Unseen? Manipulated? Emotionally exhausted? Your emotional responses often reveal whether a relationship is nurturing your peace or destroying it. Healthy relationships should not constantly leave you emotionally depleted. They should not force you to abandon your boundaries in order to maintain connection. They should not require you to silence your needs, ignore your feelings, or tolerate repeated emotional harm. Sometimes people remain in unhealthy relationships because they confuse attachment with love. They fear loneliness more than emotional suffering. They hold on to relationships that repeatedly hurt them because they hope things will change. But emotional attachment should never come at the cost of your peace, dignity, or self-worth. Boundaries are not only necessary in romantic relationships. They are equally important with family and friends. Some of the deepest emotional wounds people carry come from family dynamics where boundaries were never respected. Certain family members may be controlling, critical, emotionally manipulative, or emotionally draining. Many people struggle to establish boundaries with family because they feel obligated to tolerate harmful behavior simply because of blood connection. But being family does not excuse emotional harm. You are allowed to protect yourself emotionally, even from people you love. You are allowed to create distance from relationships that consistently damage your peace. You are allowed to refuse conversations, behaviors, or dynamics that leave you emotionally wounded. Friendships also require boundaries. True friendship should not feel emotionally one-sided or manipulative. Healthy friends respect your limits, your time, your feelings, and your growth. Friendships built on guilt, emotional dependence, or constant emotional draining eventually become unhealthy. One of the most powerful forms of emotional protection is learning the value of emotional distance. Emotional distance does not mean becoming cold, cruel, or emotionally unavailable. It means learning how to create healthy space between yourself and situations that threaten your peace. Sometimes emotional distance means limiting conversations with people who constantly bring negativity into your life. Sometimes it means no longer explaining yourself endlessly to people committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes it means emotionally detaching from drama that no longer deserves your energy. Sometimes it means accepting that not every relationship is meant to have unlimited access to your heart. Distance can be healing. Many emotionally overwhelmed people remain too emotionally connected to things that continuously hurt them. They replay painful conversations repeatedly. They obsess over people who mistreated them. They emotionally chase closure from individuals incapable of giving it. They remain attached to relationships long after those relationships stopped being healthy. Emotional distance creates clarity. It allows your nervous system to breathe again. It helps you reconnect with yourself instead of constantly being consumed by external emotional chaos. One of the most empowering realizations you will ever have is understanding that peace is more valuable than constant emotional access to everyone. Not every argument deserves your response. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your energy. Emotionally strong people become selective about what they allow into their inner world. They understand that peace must be protected intentionally. They stop entertaining emotional chaos unnecessarily. They stop chasing people who consistently disrupt their emotional well-being. They stop sacrificing themselves to maintain unhealthy connections. Building boundaries may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you spent years prioritizing everyone else above yourself. You may feel guilt. You may fear disappointing people. You may worry that others will misunderstand your intentions. But discomfort is often part of growth. The people who truly care about you will eventually respect your boundaries because healthy love respects emotional well-being. And those who become angry when you protect your peace often reveal why boundaries were necessary in the first place. You deserve relationships where your peace is protected, not constantly disturbed. You deserve connections that nourish your emotional health instead of draining it. You deserve the freedom to exist without constantly carrying emotional burdens that were never yours to hold. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is wisdom. There will always be people who demand more access, more energy, more explanations, and more emotional labor than you can reasonably give. But you do not have to destroy yourself trying to meet impossible expectations. Your peace matters. Every healthy boundary you set strengthens your emotional stability. Every time you honor your limits, you reinforce your self-worth. Every time you choose peace over emotional chaos, you reclaim another part of yourself. Little by little, you stop living emotionally exhausted. You stop fearing other people's reactions. You stop abandoning yourself for approval. You stop allowing toxic patterns to control your emotional world. And eventually you realize something powerful: boundaries do not push healthy love away. They protect the kind of peace that allows healthy love to grow. Chapter 6: Becoming Strong Without Becoming Cold. One of the greatest fears people develop after emotional pain is the fear of feeling too much again. After heartbreak, betrayal, rejection, disappointment, or emotional exhaustion, many people quietly make a decision within themselves: never again. Never again will they trust so deeply. Never again will they open their hearts completely. Never again will they allow someone to hurt them the way they were hurt before. At first, this emotional shutdown can feel like protection. Walls begin forming around the heart. Vulnerability becomes uncomfortable. Emotional distance feels safer than emotional closeness. People stop expressing feelings openly. They avoid emotional attachment. They become cautious, guarded, and emotionally unavailable. Deep inside, they convince themselves that becoming colder will prevent future pain. But there is a difference between becoming emotionally strong and becoming emotionally numb. Emotional resilience is healthy strength. Emotional numbness is emotional self-protection born from unresolved pain. One creates peace, while the other creates disconnection. One allows you to heal while staying emotionally alive. The other slowly disconnects you from love, joy, trust, and meaningful human connection. Many people mistake emotional numbness for strength, because numbness can temporarily reduce pain. If you stop opening your heart, you may reduce the risk of heartbreak. If you stop trusting people, you may reduce the risk of betrayal. If you avoid emotional attachment, you may reduce the fear of loss. But while emotional walls may protect you from some pain, they also block the very experiences that make life meaningful. A closed heart may feel safe, but it also feels lonely. The goal of emotional growth is not to stop feeling. The goal is to learn how to feel deeply without losing yourself. It is learning how to love without becoming emotionally dependent. It is learning how to trust wisely without becoming naive. It is learning how to stay compassionate without allowing people to destroy your peace. Pain changes people. There is no denying that. Emotional pain has a way of reshaping how people see relationships, vulnerability, and even themselves. Someone who once loved openly may become fearful after betrayal. Someone who once trusted easily may become suspicious after deception. Someone who once gave their whole heart may become emotionally distant after abandonment. Pain often creates emotional survival mechanisms. Some people become hyper-independent because they no longer want to rely on anyone emotionally. Others avoid commitment because closeness feels dangerous. Some shut down emotionally whenever relationships become too deep. Others keep people at a distance, while secretly craving connection. These reactions are understandable. The heart naturally tries to protect itself from repeated suffering. But emotional survival mechanisms that once protected you can eventually begin limiting your life. When emotional walls become permanent, people stop experiencing emotional intimacy fully. They may appear strong on the outside, while secretly feeling disconnected internally. They may struggle to trust love even when it is healthy. They may sabotage relationships because vulnerability feels unsafe. They may convince themselves they do not need anyone, while silently longing for emotional closeness. The tragedy is not only the pain people experience. The tragedy is how many people stop allowing themselves to truly live emotionally afterward. Becoming emotionally unavailable may prevent some pain, but it also prevents emotional freedom. Human beings are designed for connection. Love, trust, friendship, vulnerability, and emotional closeness are part of what gives life depth and meaning. The answer is not to shut your heart down completely. The answer is to strengthen yourself emotionally, so that relationships no longer control your identity or destroy your peace. You can love deeply without losing yourself. This is one of the most important lessons emotionally strong people learn. Loving someone should never require abandoning your self-worth, boundaries, identity, or emotional stability. Healthy love adds to your life. It does not consume your entire sense of self. Many people lose themselves in relationships because they confuse love with emotional dependency. They begin centering their entire emotional world around another person. Their happiness becomes dependent on attention, reassurance, or validation from the relationship. They sacrifice their needs to maintain connection. They tolerate unhealthy behavior out of fear of losing the person they love. This kind of attachment creates emotional instability because your peace becomes tied to someone else's behavior. If they pull away, you feel emotionally shattered. If they disappoint you, your self-worth collapses. If the relationship ends, you feel lost because you built your identity around the connection. But emotionally healthy love is different. Healthy love allows closeness without emotional captivity. It allows connection without self-abandonment. It creates partnership without erasing individuality. Loving without losing yourself means maintaining your identity, boundaries, goals, peace, and self-respect, even while emotionally connected to another person. It means remembering that you are still whole as an individual. Your value does not disappear because a relationship changes. Your worth does not depend entirely on another person's ability to stay. Strong people understand that love should complement life, not become the sole foundation holding their emotional world together. Another important part of emotional resilience is learning how to practice compassion with boundaries. Compassion is a beautiful quality. The ability to care for others, understand pain, and offer emotional support reflects emotional depth and humanity. But compassion without boundaries often leads to emotional burnout. Many emotionally sensitive people become exhausted because they constantly carry other people's emotional burdens. They absorb negativity, tolerate disrespect, overextend themselves emotionally, and neglect their own well-being while trying to rescue others. They believe loving people means endlessly sacrificing themselves. But healthy compassion includes self-respect. You can care deeply about someone without allowing them unlimited access to your peace. You can support people without becoming responsible for fixing their lives. You can empathize with someone's pain while still recognizing when a relationship or situation is harming you emotionally. Compassion with boundaries means understanding that protecting yourself emotionally is not cruelty. It is wisdom. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to step back from emotional chaos. You are allowed to create a distance from relationships that repeatedly drain your spirit. Emotionally strong people do not stop caring. They simply become wiser about where they invest their emotional energy. One of the hardest emotional challenges after heartbreak is learning how to trust again. Betrayal often leaves people questioning their judgment, their instincts, and their ability to feel emotionally safe. Once trust has been broken deeply, vulnerability can feel terrifying. Many people respond to heartbreak by becoming emotionally guarded. They convince themselves that trusting no one is safer than risking pain again. But refusing to trust anyone may protect you from future disappointment temporarily, yet it also keeps you trapped emotionally in fear. Healing after heartbreak does not mean becoming naive or blindly trusting everyone again. It means learning how to trust wisely. Trusting wisely means paying attention to patterns instead of empty words. It means allowing people to earn emotional access gradually. It means recognizing red flags instead of ignoring them out of emotional desperation. It means understanding that healthy trust develops through consistency, honesty, respect, and emotional safety over time. Most importantly, trusting wisely also means trusting yourself again. Many people lose trust in themselves after emotional pain. They wonder why they missed warning signs or tolerated unhealthy treatment. They become afraid of making emotional mistakes again. But emotional growth gives you something powerful: wisdom. The painful experiences you survived can sharpen discernment and strengthen emotional awareness. You are not the same person you were before the pain. You now carry lessons, insight, and emotional understanding you did not have before. Healing allows you to approach future relationships with both openness and wisdom. This balance between vulnerability and self-protection is one of the greatest signs of emotional maturity. Too much vulnerability without boundaries can lead to emotional harm. Too much self-protection can lead to emotional isolation. Emotional resilience exists in the middle. Healthy vulnerability means allowing yourself to be emotionally seen without abandoning caution entirely. It means expressing emotions honestly while still maintaining boundaries and self-respect. It means accepting that emotional openness carries risk while understanding that meaningful connection is impossible without some level of vulnerability. Life requires courage emotionally. There is no way to fully experience love, trust, friendship, or connection without risk. But emotionally strong people stop viewing vulnerability as weakness. They begin understanding that vulnerability requires enormous courage. It takes courage to love after heartbreak. It takes courage to trust after betrayal. It takes courage to remain kind in a world that has hurt you. It takes courage to stay emotionally open after disappointment tried to harden you. That courage is part of true strength. Healthy emotional openness does not mean oversharing with everyone or trusting people blindly. It means remaining emotionally alive. It means refusing to let pain permanently close your heart. It means allowing yourself to continue experiencing joy, connection, hope, and love, despite the risks life sometimes brings. Emotionally healthy people are not emotionally fearless. They simply refuse to let fear control the entire direction of their lives. They understand that pain is part of the human experience, but they also understand that shutting down emotionally is not the answer. There is a version of strength that still smiles genuinely. A version of strength that still believes in love. A version of strength that still trusts wisely, cares deeply, and remains compassionate without becoming emotionally weak. That kind of strength is powerful because it is balanced. The world often teaches extremes. Some people become emotionally dependent and lose themselves in relationships. Others become emotionally detached and stop allowing anyone close. But emotional health exists between those extremes. It is possible to be emotionally secure without becoming cold. It is possible to protect your peace while still maintaining a soft heart. A soft heart is not weakness when it is paired with wisdom. In fact, one of the strongest things you can do is remain emotionally open after life gave you reasons to shut down completely. Remaining kind after betrayal, hopeful after disappointment, and loving after heartbreak reflects emotional resilience far greater than emotional numbness ever could. Do not allow painful experiences to convince you that love, trust, or emotional openness are mistakes. Painful experiences are lessons, not permanent definitions of your future. The answer is not to stop feeling. The answer is to strengthen yourself emotionally, so that future pain no longer destroys your identity. You deserve relationships where your heart feels safe without losing its freedom. You deserve emotional closeness without emotional captivity. You deserve love that respects your boundaries, honors your peace, and allows you to remain fully yourself. As you continue healing and growing, you will begin noticing something beautiful happening within you. You no longer react to pain the same way. You no longer collapse emotionally when disappointment comes. You no longer chase love desperately or fear abandonment constantly. Instead, you begin developing emotional stability. You learn how to stand strong emotionally while still remaining compassionate. You learn how to trust carefully without living in fear. You learn how to love fully without losing yourself completely. And eventually, you discover one of the greatest forms of emotional freedom, becoming strong enough to protect your heart without hardening it. Chapter 7: Protecting Your Peace in Relationships. Romantic relationships have the power to bring some of the greatest joy people will ever experience, but they can also become one of the greatest sources of emotional pain. Love can inspire growth, healing, safety, and emotional connection, yet unhealthy relationships can create anxiety, insecurity, emotional exhaustion, and deep inner chaos. This is why protecting your peace in relationships is one of the most important emotional skills you will ever develop. Many people enter relationships hoping to feel loved, valued, and emotionally safe, but somewhere along the way they lose themselves emotionally. They become consumed by fear of losing the relationship. They ignore red flags to avoid heartbreak. They tolerate unhealthy behavior because they confuse emotional attachment with love. Little by little, their peace disappears, while emotional stress becomes their new normal. The truth is that love should not constantly destroy your mental and emotional well-being. Relationships are not meant to leave you emotionally broken, confused, drained, or fearful all the time. Healthy love may challenge you to grow, but it should not consistently rob you of your peace. One of the most important parts of emotional maturity is learning how to recognize emotionally unhealthy relationships before they completely damage your emotional stability. Many unhealthy relationships do not begin with obvious cruelty or toxicity. They often begin with intense emotional connection, excitement, or emotional dependence that slowly transforms into instability over time. Emotionally unhealthy relationships often create emotional confusion instead of emotional safety. You may constantly feel anxious, uncertain, emotionally drained, or emotionally insecure. Communication may feel inconsistent. One moment you feel loved, and the next moment you feel emotionally abandoned. You may begin overthinking constantly, walking on emotional eggshells, or losing confidence in yourself. In healthy relationships, peace exists alongside love. In unhealthy relationships, chaos often replaces peace. One major reason people remain trapped in emotionally unhealthy relationships is attachment. Human beings naturally form emotional attachments, but attachment styles deeply influence how people behave in relationships. Some people develop secure attachment and feel emotionally safe while loving others. Others develop anxious attachment and constantly fear rejection, abandonment, or emotional distance. Some develop avoidant attachment and struggle with emotional closeness because vulnerability feels threatening. People with anxious attachment often become emotionally dependent on relationships. They may constantly seek reassurance, overanalyze behavior, fear being left, or feel emotionally unstable whenever the relationship feels uncertain. Small changes in communication can trigger panic, insecurity, or emotional overreaction. Their peace becomes heavily dependent on the emotional availability of their partner. On the other hand, avoidant individuals may struggle with vulnerability and emotional closeness. They may pull away when relationships become too deep emotionally. They may suppress emotions, avoid difficult conversations, or create emotional distance whenever intimacy feels overwhelming. When anxious and avoidant patterns combine, relationships often become emotionally exhausting. One person constantly seeks reassurance, while the other withdraws emotionally. This creates painful emotional cycles, filled with insecurity, chasing, withdrawal, confusion, and emotional instability. Understanding attachment patterns is important, because many relationship struggles are not simply about love. They are connected to emotional wounds, fears, and unresolved insecurities. Some people are not reacting only to their current partner, they are reacting to old abandonment wounds, past betrayals, childhood conditioning, or previous heartbreak. Healing these patterns is essential because emotional dependence can quietly destroy peace. The moment your entire emotional world revolves around another person's behavior, you lose emotional stability. If they are happy with you, you feel secure. If they become distant, your peace disappears. This creates emotional imbalance because your emotional state constantly depends on something outside your control. Healthy love should never require emotional imprisonment. One of the most powerful ways to protect peace in relationships is through healthy communication. Communication is more than talking. It is the emotional bridge that creates understanding, safety, trust, and connection. Many relationships suffer not because love is absent, but because communication becomes unhealthy, defensive, disrespectful, or emotionally unsafe. Emotionally safe communication allows both people to express feelings honestly, without fear of humiliation, manipulation, or emotional punishment. In healthy relationships, concerns can be discussed without constant yelling, cruelty, silent treatment, or emotional attacks. There is respect, even during disagreement. Unfortunately, many people communicate from pain instead of emotional maturity. Hurt turns into insults. Fear turns into control. Insecurity turns into accusations. Frustration turns into emotional withdrawal. Instead of solving problems together, couples begin emotionally attacking each other. Protecting your peace requires learning how to communicate without destroying emotional safety. This means expressing feelings honestly while remaining respectful. It means listening without immediately becoming defensive. It means addressing problems calmly instead of exploding emotionally every time conflict appears. Conflict itself is not the enemy of relationships. Every relationship experiences disagreements because two imperfect human beings are trying to build connection together. The real issue is how conflict is handled. Unhealthy conflict creates emotional destruction. Some people use insults, manipulation, blame, guilt, or emotional silence during disagreements. Others bring up past mistakes repeatedly to punish their partner emotionally. Some threaten abandonment whenever problems arise. Others shut down emotionally and refuse to communicate at all. These behaviors slowly damage trust, safety, and emotional stability. Healthy conflict, however, focuses on understanding and resolution rather than emotional destruction. Emotionally mature people recognize that conflict should not become warfare. The goal is not to win at the expense of the relationship. The goal is to solve problems while protecting each other's emotional well-being. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is the ability to remain calm during emotional tension. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means learning how to regulate them. Instead of reacting impulsively, emotionally healthy people pause, reflect, and communicate intentionally. Peace in relationships is protected when both people feel emotionally safe enough to express themselves honestly, without fear of emotional punishment. Another important part of protecting your peace is recognizing red flags early, instead of ignoring them out of emotional attachment. Red flags are warning signs that emotional health, respect, or safety may be compromised. Many people notice red flags early but dismiss them because they are emotionally invested, lonely, hopeful, or afraid of losing the connection. Sometimes red flags appear through emotional inconsistency. A person may be loving one moment and emotionally cold the next, creating confusion and anxiety. Sometimes red flags appear through dishonesty, manipulation, jealousy, control, disrespect, or emotional unpredictability. Other times they appear through constant criticism, emotional neglect, or refusal to take accountability for harmful behavior. Ignoring red flags does not make them disappear. In fact, tolerated behavior often becomes repeated behavior. Many emotionally exhausted people stay too long in relationships that repeatedly disturb their peace, because they kept hoping things would improve without real change occurring. They ignored how emotionally drained they felt, because they were focused on potential instead of reality. Love should never require you to constantly betray your own emotional well-being. One of the most damaging relationship patterns people experience is toxic emotional cycles. Toxic cycles often involve repeated emotional highs and lows that create emotional addiction instead of emotional stability. There may be periods of intense affection, followed by withdrawal, conflict, or emotional pain. After arguments or emotional harm, temporary reconciliation creates relief, which strengthens emotional attachment despite the unhealthy pattern continuing. These emotional cycles can become addictive because the nervous system becomes attached to the unpredictability. People confuse emotional intensity with deep love, when in reality they are experiencing emotional instability. Healthy love is not built on constant chaos. It is built on consistency, trust, communication, respect, and emotional safety. Breaking toxic emotional cycles requires courage, because emotional attachment can make unhealthy relationships difficult to leave. People often stay because they remember the good moments, fear loneliness, or hope the person will change permanently. But emotional peace requires honesty. You cannot heal in environments that constantly wound you emotionally. Choosing relationships that nourish instead of drain is one of the most important acts of self-respect. Emotionally healthy relationships should bring support, encouragement, growth, and emotional safety into your life. They should not leave you constantly anxious, emotionally depleted, or questioning your worth. A nourishing relationship allows you to remain fully yourself. You do not feel pressured to shrink, perform, or constantly earn love. You feel emotionally accepted, respected, and valued. You are able to communicate openly without fear. You are able to maintain your individuality while still building connection. Healthy relationships create peace not constant emotional survival mode. This does not mean healthy relationships are perfect. They still require effort, communication, patience, and growth. But there is a major difference between relationships that challenge you to grow and relationships that repeatedly destroy your emotional well-being. Emotionally healthy partners take accountability when they hurt you. They respect boundaries. They communicate honestly. They care about your emotional safety. They do not constantly manipulate, belittle, or emotionally destabilize you. One of the greatest emotional shifts you can make is realizing that peace is more important than emotional chaos disguised as love. Many people chase intense emotional experiences because they mistake emotional turbulence for passion. But constant emotional instability eventually becomes exhausting. Real love feels safe. Real love feels respectful. Real love allows your nervous system to rest instead of constantly preparing for emotional pain. Protecting your peace in relationships also means maintaining your identity outside the relationship. Many people lose themselves emotionally because they make the relationship their entire world. They neglect personal goals, friendships, passions, boundaries, and emotional independence. Over time, their identity becomes completely tied to the relationship. But emotionally healthy love allows both people to remain whole individuals. You can deeply love someone without abandoning your own growth, purpose, or emotional balance. Strong relationships are built by two emotionally grounded people who choose connection without losing themselves inside it. You deserve a relationship where your peace is protected, not constantly threatened. You deserve love that allows you to breathe emotionally. You deserve honesty instead of manipulation, consistency instead of confusion, and respect instead of emotional games. Most importantly, you deserve a relationship where you do not have to constantly fight for emotional safety. As you continue growing emotionally, you will begin recognizing relationships differently. You will stop chasing people who repeatedly disturb your peace. You will stop romanticizing emotional chaos. You will stop confusing inconsistency with passion and emotional dependence with love. Instead, you will begin valuing stability, emotional maturity, honesty, and peace. You will learn that protecting your peace is not a barrier to love. It is the foundation that allows healthy love to survive. And eventually, you will discover something life-changing. The healthiest relationships are not the ones that constantly test your emotional stability. They are the ones that help you feel emotionally safe enough to grow, love, and remain fully yourself without fear. Chapter 8: Letting Go Without Falling Apart. One of the hardest emotional lessons in life is learning how to let go. Human beings naturally hold on to what they love, what they hoped for, what they believed would stay, and what once made them feel safe. People hold on to relationships, dreams, expectations, memories, identities, and emotional attachments because letting go often feels like losing a part of themselves. This is why endings can feel so painful. Sometimes the pain is not only about losing a person or situation. It is about losing the future you imagined. It is about grieving the emotional security you thought would remain. It is about facing the terrifying reality that life does not always unfold according to your plans, hopes, or desires. Many people struggle emotionally because they never learned how to release what no longer belongs in their lives. Instead, they cling tightly to things that are already gone emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. They replay old memories constantly. They chase closure from people incapable of giving it. They resist reality because acceptance feels too painful. They continue emotionally fighting battles that have already ended. But emotional peace becomes impossible when your heart refuses to release what life is asking you to let go of. Letting go hurts because attachment runs deep within human nature. People become emotionally attached not only to others, but also to routines, identities, expectations, and dreams. Attachment creates emotional investment, and whenever something emotionally significant changes or disappears, grief naturally follows. The deeper the attachment, the deeper the pain often feels. This is why heartbreak can feel physically painful. This is why betrayal can shake someone's entire emotional foundation. This is why endings can leave people emotionally disoriented. The mind and heart struggle to accept that something once meaningful is no longer part of daily life. Sometimes people hold on because they believe letting go means giving up. Others hold on because they fear loneliness, uncertainty, or emotional emptiness. Some hold on because they secretly hope things will return to the way they once were. Others hold on because they tied their identity to the relationship, dream, or outcome they lost. But there comes a moment in every healing journey when acceptance becomes necessary. Acceptance is not weakness. It is emotional maturity. Acceptance means acknowledging reality, instead of emotionally fighting against it endlessly. It means recognizing that some things are beyond your control, no matter how deeply you wish otherwise. One of the greatest sources of emotional suffering is trying to control what cannot be controlled. People try to control other people's feelings, decisions, loyalty, timing, and behavior. They try to control outcomes, prevent endings, and force relationships to remain unchanged. But life does not always obey human desires. You cannot force someone to stay. You cannot force honesty from someone committed to deception. You cannot force effort from someone emotionally unavailable. You cannot force life to unfold exactly the way you imagined. This truth can feel painful, but it can also become freeing. The moment you stop trying to control uncontrollable situations, your emotional energy begins returning to you. Instead of exhausting yourself emotionally fighting reality, you begin learning how to work with reality. You stop chasing impossible outcomes. You stop emotionally collapsing every time life changes unexpectedly. You begin focusing on what you can control instead: your healing, your choices, your mindset, your boundaries, and your growth. Acceptance creates peace because resistance creates suffering. Many people remain emotionally trapped, not because the loss itself destroyed them, but because they refuse to accept the loss fully. They replay conversations, repeatedly searching for different endings. They obsess over what they could have done differently. They emotionally live in the past, while life continues moving forward around them. But healing begins when you stop arguing with reality. This does not mean pretending loss does not hurt. It means allowing yourself to grieve in a healthy way, instead of remaining emotionally stuck forever. Grief is one of the most misunderstood emotional experiences in human life. Many people think grief only applies to death, but grief appears anytime something emotionally meaningful ends. People grieve relationships, friendships, dreams, opportunities, identities, and versions of themselves that no longer exist. Grief is not weakness. Grief is proof that something mattered to you. The problem is that many people do not know how to grieve emotionally healthy. Some suppress emotions completely because they fear appearing weak. Others become consumed by grief and lose themselves entirely inside the pain. Healthy grieving exists between those extremes. Healthy grieving means allowing yourself to feel sadness, disappointment, anger, confusion, and pain without becoming trapped inside those emotions permanently. It means giving yourself permission to mourn what was lost, while still believing life can continue meaningfully afterward. Pain must be processed, not avoided. Suppressing grief does not make it disappear. Unprocessed pain often resurfaces through anxiety, emotional numbness, irritability, depression, or emotional exhaustion. The emotions people avoid eventually demand attention in other ways. Healing requires emotional honesty. It requires admitting that something hurt deeply, instead of pretending to be unaffected. It requires allowing tears, reflection, and emotional release instead of constantly distracting yourself from pain. There is strength in allowing yourself to grieve honestly. One of the hardest parts of letting go is releasing attachment to specific outcomes. Many people suffer emotionally because they become deeply attached not only to people, but also to expectations. They imagine how life should unfold, and when reality looks different, emotional disappointment follows. People become attached to timelines, dreams, and visions of the future. They expect relationships to last forever. They expect loyalty from certain people. They expect life to reward effort fairly. When reality breaks those expectations, emotional pain follows. But emotional freedom grows when you stop needing life to unfold exactly according to your plans, in order to feel okay. This does not mean becoming hopeless, or emotionally detached from goals and desires. It means learning flexibility emotionally. It means understanding that disappointment does not mean your life is ruined. It means accepting that some endings create space for new beginnings you cannot yet see. Sometimes what leaves your life creates room for what truly belongs there. Moving on after heartbreak is one of the greatest emotional challenges many people face. Heartbreak often creates emotional withdrawal symptoms because love affects the mind, emotions, and nervous system deeply. After a breakup, people may feel emotionally lost, anxious, lonely, or incomplete. The temptation after heartbreak is often to chase closure, cling to memories, or keep reopening emotional wounds hoping for different outcomes. Many people delay healing because they keep emotionally revisiting what hurt them. But moving on requires courage. Moving on does not mean pretending the relationship never mattered. It means accepting that your life must continue, even though the relationship ended. It means choosing yourself again, after emotionally centering someone else for so long. Healing after heartbreak requires rebuilding your emotional identity outside the relationship. Many people lose themselves inside love. Their routines, happiness, confidence, and emotional stability become deeply tied to another person. When the relationship ends, they feel emotionally empty because they no longer know who they are without it. This is why healing requires reconnecting with yourself again. Rediscovering your passions, values, goals, and inner strength becomes essential. You must remember that your worth did not disappear simply because a relationship ended. Someone leaving does not erase your value. Finding peace after betrayal can feel especially difficult because betrayal damages trust at its core. It creates emotional confusion because the person who once provided comfort became the source of pain. Betrayal often leaves people questioning themselves, their judgment, and their ability to trust others again. The danger after betrayal is allowing bitterness to permanently harden your heart. Some people become consumed by anger, revenge, resentment, or emotional distrust. While these reactions may feel understandable temporarily, carrying them forever only prolongs suffering. Peace after betrayal comes through healing, not revenge. Healing requires accepting that someone else's betrayal reflects their character, not your worth. People who deceive, manipulate, or betray often act from their own emotional immaturity, wounds, selfishness, or lack of integrity. Their actions may have hurt you deeply, but they do not define your value as a human being. The painful truth is that not everyone will love correctly. Not everyone will stay loyal. Not everyone will appreciate what they have. But other people's failures should never convince you that you are unworthy of genuine love, respect, or honesty. One of the most beautiful truths about emotional loss is that it often creates growth people never expected. Painful endings have a way of forcing emotional transformation. Loss stretches people emotionally. It reveals strengths they did not know existed. It teaches wisdom, boundaries, resilience, and self-awareness. Some of the strongest people in the world became strong because life forced them to rebuild after emotional devastation. Growth through emotional loss happens when pain becomes a teacher instead of a permanent prison. Every heartbreak can teach discernment. Every betrayal can teach boundaries. Every disappointment can teach resilience. Every ending can teach detachment from things that were never meant to define your identity completely. Pain changes people, but growth transforms them. Sometimes life removes things because they can no longer accompany you into the next version of yourself. Certain relationships, expectations, habits, or attachments must end for emotional growth to begin. This does not make the loss easy, but it gives the pain meaning. You are stronger than what you lost. This truth matters because many people unknowingly build their identity around external things. They define themselves through relationships, achievements, validation, or dreams. When those things disappear, they feel emotionally shattered because they forgot their identity exists beyond what they lost. But your value remains even after loss. Your future remains even after disappointment. Your life still carries purpose even after heartbreak. There is life after endings. At first, letting go may feel like emotional death. But eventually, it becomes emotional freedom. You begin waking up without carrying constant emotional heaviness. You stop replaying the past every moment. You stop needing answers you may never receive. Little by little, peace returns. Healing does not happen overnight. Some days grief will feel heavier than others. Some memories may still hurt unexpectedly. But healing is not about erasing the past completely. It is about learning how to carry your experiences without allowing them to destroy your future. You are allowed to miss what mattered while still moving forward. You are allowed to grieve while still healing. You are allowed to let go without forgetting the lessons, memories, or growth that came from what you experienced. And eventually you will realize something powerful. Letting go is not losing yourself. Sometimes letting go is finally finding yourself again after pain tried to convince you that you were broken forever. Chapter 9: Creating a Peaceful Inner Life. One of the greatest discoveries a person can make is that peace is not something found only in perfect circumstances. True peace is something built within. Many people spend their lives chasing external conditions they believe will finally make them feel calm, secure, and emotionally fulfilled. They believe peace will come when relationships improve, when financial problems disappear, when they receive enough validation, or when life becomes easier. But life will always contain uncertainty, challenges, disappointments, and unexpected changes. If your peace depends entirely on external conditions, your emotional world will constantly rise and fall with circumstances beyond your control. This is why creating a peaceful inner life is one of the most powerful forms of emotional strength. It means learning how to remain emotionally grounded, even when life around you feels uncertain. It means developing an internal stability that does not collapse every time something goes wrong externally. Many people unknowingly live with inner chaos. Their minds are constantly racing. Their emotions constantly shift based on what others say or do. Their peace disappears whenever life becomes stressful. They wake up anxious, overwhelmed, emotionally distracted, and mentally exhausted because they have never learned how to create calm within themselves. Inner peace is not accidental. It is built intentionally through daily habits, emotional discipline, self-awareness, and conscious choices. Every day, people either strengthen or weaken their emotional resilience through the habits they practice repeatedly. Emotional strength is not built only during major crises. It is built quietly in ordinary moments through consistent emotional care. Daily habits shape emotional stability more than most people realize. The way you begin your mornings, the thoughts you feed your mind, the environments you expose yourself to, the people you spend time with, and the way you care for your mental and emotional health all influence your inner world deeply. Many emotionally overwhelmed people live without emotional routines that support peace. Their minds consume negativity constantly. They absorb stress all day long. They spend little time reflecting, resting, or emotionally recharging. Over time, emotional exhaustion becomes their normal state. Creating a peaceful inner life requires intentional emotional nourishment. This may involve starting your day with quiet reflection, instead of immediate stress and distraction. It may involve limiting exposure to constant negativity, toxic conversations, or emotionally draining environments. It may involve creating moments of stillness, where your mind can breathe instead of remaining overwhelmed by non-stop stimulation. Your emotional world responds to what you consistently feed it. Just as the body weakens without proper care, the mind and emotions weaken when constantly exposed to stress, negativity, and emotional chaos. Protecting your mental and emotional energy is essential, because energy is one of your most valuable resources. Without emotional energy, even small challenges begin feeling overwhelming. Many people give away emotional energy carelessly. They spend hours worrying about things they cannot control. They entertain unnecessary drama. They overextend themselves trying to please everyone. They allow toxic people unlimited access to their emotional space. They consume endless negativity through media, social comparison, and stressful environments. Little by little, their inner peace disappears. Emotionally healthy people become protective of their energy because they understand that peace requires boundaries. Not every conversation deserves your attention. Not every problem deserves your emotional involvement. Not every opinion deserves space inside your mind. Protecting your energy means becoming intentional about what you allow into your inner world. It means recognizing when something is emotionally draining your spirit instead of strengthening it. It means learning how to step away from unnecessary emotional chaos before it consumes your peace. One of the most powerful ways to reconnect with yourself emotionally is through solitude and self-reflection. Many people fear being alone because silence forces them to confront emotions, thoughts, insecurities, and truths they normally avoid through distraction. As a result, they constantly surround themselves with noise, activity, social interaction, or emotional dependency. But solitude can become one of the greatest tools for emotional healing and clarity. Healthy solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is feeling emotionally disconnected. Solitude is intentionally creating space to reconnect with yourself. In solitude, you begin hearing your own thoughts clearly again. You begin understanding your emotions, instead of constantly escaping them. You begin discovering who you are beneath external expectations, distractions, and emotional noise. Self-reflection creates emotional awareness. It allows you to examine your patterns, beliefs, reactions, fears, and desires honestly. Many people move through life emotionally unconscious, repeating the same unhealthy habits without ever slowing down enough to understand why. But growth requires reflection. When you spend time reflecting honestly, you begin recognizing what disturbs your peace, what strengthens your spirit, what wounds still need healing, and what changes are necessary for emotional growth. You begin making choices more intentionally, instead of reacting impulsively to life. There is wisdom in learning how to sit quietly with yourself. A peaceful inner life also requires gratitude. Gratitude may sound simple, but it has enormous emotional power. Many people live focused almost entirely on what is missing, painful, uncertain, or disappointing. Their minds constantly scan for problems, flaws, and fears. Over time, negativity becomes their emotional default. Gratitude shifts emotional focus. This does not mean ignoring problems or pretending life is perfect. It means recognizing that even within imperfect circumstances, there are still things worth appreciating. Gratitude teaches the mind to notice beauty alongside difficulty, hope alongside struggle, and blessings alongside pain. People who practice gratitude regularly often experience greater emotional balance because gratitude interrupts the mind's tendency to remain trapped in negativity. It reminds you that your entire life is not defined solely by your hardships. Even during painful seasons, there is still something valuable worth recognizing. Sometimes it is growth. Sometimes it is survival. Sometimes it is love, friendship, health, wisdom, opportunity, or simply another chance to keep moving forward. Gratitude softens emotional heaviness because it reconnects the heart to hope. Creating inner peace also requires emotional discipline. Emotional discipline means learning how to manage emotions instead of being controlled entirely by them. Many people live reactively. Their emotions dictate every decision, every reaction, and every mood. If something upsets them, their entire day collapses emotionally. If someone disappoints them, they lose all peace instantly. But emotional discipline creates stability. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending feelings do not matter. Emotional discipline means acknowledging emotions while still choosing wise responses. It means not allowing temporary feelings to completely control your actions, thoughts, or identity. Emotionally disciplined people understand that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent rulers. Sadness comes and goes. Fear rises and falls. Anger passes. Anxiety fluctuates. Instead of panicking every time difficult emotions appear, emotionally strong people learn how to experience emotions without becoming emotionally consumed by them. This ability creates enormous peace because emotional stability no longer depends entirely on external circumstances. One of the biggest reasons people struggle emotionally is because they build their entire identity around relationships. They depend on romantic connection for purpose, validation, security, and emotional fulfillment. While relationships are important, no relationship should become the sole foundation holding your identity together. Finding purpose beyond relationships is essential for emotional health. Purpose gives life direction beyond emotional attachment. It reminds you that your existence carries value independent of who loves you, who leaves you, or who validates you. Purpose may come through personal growth, helping others, creativity, faith, goals, passions, learning, or contributing something meaningful to the world. When people lack purpose outside relationships, they often become emotionally dependent. Breakups feel like total identity collapse because they lost not only the relationship, but also their sense of meaning. But emotionally healthy people build lives that remain meaningful, even outside romantic connection. Your life has value beyond who chooses you. A peaceful inner life develops when you stop defining your entire worth through external validation and begin building a deeper relationship with yourself. You begin recognizing that your peace cannot depend entirely on the unpredictable behavior of other people. The world around you may not always be calm. Life will still bring challenges, disappointments, stress, uncertainty, and emotional pain at times. But emotional strength grows when your inner world no longer collapses every time external chaos appears. This is the true power of inner peace. Inner peace is not weakness. It is emotional mastery. It is the ability to remain grounded while the world around you shifts unpredictably. It is learning how to protect your emotional state without becoming emotionally numb. It is developing calmness that survives difficult seasons instead of disappearing during them. People with peaceful inner lives are not people without problems. They are people who have learned how to respond to life differently. They no longer react impulsively to every emotional storm. They no longer give external circumstances unlimited control over their mental state. They have learned how to return to themselves emotionally, even during difficult moments. This level of peace changes everything. You stop chasing validation desperately, because your worth already feels rooted within. You stop fearing loneliness, because you have learned how to enjoy your own company. You stop absorbing every negative opinion, because you are emotionally grounded enough to know who you are. Your peace becomes less fragile. One of the most beautiful things about emotional growth is realizing that peace is something you can carry within you, regardless of what happens externally. This does not mean life will never hurt again. It means pain no longer completely destroys your emotional foundation. You become stronger internally. You begin waking up with more clarity and emotional balance. You become less reactive and more intentional. You stop allowing fear, overthinking, or emotional chaos to dominate your inner world constantly. Little by little, you create emotional safety within yourself. And eventually, something remarkable happens. The calmness you spent years searching for in other people, perfect circumstances, and external success begins growing quietly inside you. You realize that peace was never something the world could permanently give you. It was something you had to learn how to build within yourself all along. Chapter 10: Becoming Emotionally Unbreakable. There comes a moment in every healing journey when a person begins to realize they are no longer who they used to be. The things that once shattered them no longer have the same power. The fears that once controlled them begin losing their grip. The emotional chaos that once consumed their peace starts fading little by little. They begin responding differently to life. They begin protecting themselves differently. They begin loving themselves differently. This is the beginning of emotional strength. Becoming emotionally unbreakable does not mean becoming emotionless. It does not mean pretending pain no longer exists. It does not mean you never cry, never struggle, or never experience disappointment again. Emotional strength is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to remain grounded, self-aware, and emotionally stable even when life becomes difficult. Truly strong people still feel deeply. They still experience heartbreak, grief, rejection, uncertainty, and fear. But they no longer allow those experiences to completely destroy their identity or steal their peace permanently. They recover faster. They trust themselves more. They stop collapsing emotionally every time life becomes painful or unpredictable. This is what emotional resilience truly looks like. It is the ability to face betrayal without becoming permanently bitter. It is the ability to experience heartbreak without losing belief in love. It is the ability to face rejection without questioning your worth entirely. It is the ability to walk through difficult seasons without abandoning yourself emotionally. Many people misunderstand strength because society often portrays strength as emotional hardness. People are taught to suppress emotions, avoid vulnerability, and appear unaffected by pain. But emotional suppression is not strength. Avoidance is not healing. Emotional numbness is not resilience. Real emotional strength is softer and wiser than that. It is calmness during emotional storms. It is self-control during painful moments. It is knowing how to protect your peace without becoming cold-hearted. It is staying emotionally open, while also maintaining boundaries. It is carrying wisdom from pain, without allowing pain to harden your spirit permanently. Emotionally unbreakable people understand something powerful: life will never be completely predictable. There will always be uncertainties. Relationships may change unexpectedly. People may disappoint you. Plans may fail. Losses may occur. Seasons of difficulty may arrive without warning. Trying to control every possible outcome is impossible, and attempting to do so often creates anxiety, fear, and emotional exhaustion. One of the greatest forms of emotional freedom is learning how to accept uncertainty without constantly living in fear. Many people suffer not only because of painful events themselves, but because they spend enormous emotional energy trying to prevent pain before it even happens. They overthink constantly. They fear abandonment before anyone leaves. They expect disaster before problems arise. They attempt to emotionally control situations that cannot truly be controlled. But emotionally strong people eventually realize that peace does not come from controlling life completely. Peace comes from trusting yourself enough to handle whatever life brings. This changes everything emotionally. When you trust yourself, uncertainty stops feeling quite so terrifying. You stop believing every challenge will destroy you. You stop panicking every time life changes unexpectedly. You begin recognizing your own resilience. Trusting yourself emotionally means believing in your ability to survive difficult moments without losing yourself completely. It means trusting your judgment more deeply. It means listening to your intuition, instead of constantly ignoring your inner voice for the approval of others. It means knowing that even if life hurts you again, you are capable of healing. Many emotionally fragile people secretly do not trust themselves. They fear making mistakes, being alone, handling rejection, or surviving disappointment. Because they doubt their own strength, they cling tightly to external validation, relationships, or certainty in order to feel emotionally safe. But emotional resilience grows when you realize you are stronger than your fears convinced you to believe. You have already survived difficult moments before. You have already endured heartbreak, disappointment, uncertainty, and emotional pain. You may have struggled, cried, or felt broken at times, but you survived. And within that survival is proof of your resilience. One of the most powerful foundations of emotional strength is unshakable self-worth. Without self-worth, people become emotionally dependent on external validation. They constantly seek approval, reassurance, and acceptance from others because they do not fully believe in their own value internally. But emotionally unbreakable people no longer build their worth entirely around how others treat them. They understand that their value does not disappear because someone rejects them. Their worth does not shrink because someone fails to appreciate them. Other people's inability to recognize their value no longer defines their identity. This level of self-worth creates enormous emotional freedom. When your worth comes from within, you stop chasing love that requires self-abandonment. You stop tolerating disrespect to avoid loneliness. You stop shrinking yourself to gain approval. You stop emotionally collapsing every time someone fails to validate you. You begin standing firmly in who you are. Developing unshakable self-worth requires healing old emotional wounds that convinced you that you were not enough. It requires challenging negative beliefs about yourself. It requires recognizing that your mistakes, heartbreaks, failures, and disappointments do not define your value as a human being. You are worthy because of who you are, not because of how perfectly life unfolds. Emotionally strong people also learn the power of responding instead of reacting. Reaction is impulsive. Reaction is emotional chaos taking control. Reaction happens when emotions overpower awareness. But response comes from emotional discipline and self-awareness. Many people react to life automatically. They explode in anger, panic in fear, withdraw emotionally, or make impulsive decisions whenever emotions rise strongly. Later, they regret their reactions because emotions temporarily controlled their behavior. But emotional resilience creates space between emotion and action. This space is powerful because it allows wisdom to enter situations before emotional chaos takes over. Instead of reacting instantly, emotionally strong people pause. They reflect. They breathe. They consider consequences. They choose responses intentionally. This does not mean they never feel intense emotions. It means emotions no longer completely control their actions. Responding instead of reacting protects peace in powerful ways. It prevents unnecessary conflict. It reduces emotional regret. It creates healthier communication. Most importantly, it allows people to remain emotionally grounded during difficult situations instead of becoming consumed by them. One of the greatest tests of emotional strength is maintaining peace during difficult seasons. Anyone can feel emotionally stable when life is easy. But emotional resilience reveals itself most clearly during pain, uncertainty, loss, disappointment, and hardship. Difficult seasons often expose emotional weaknesses that comfort hides. Fear becomes visible. Attachment becomes visible. Emotional dependence becomes visible. But difficult seasons can also become powerful opportunities for growth. Emotionally unbreakable people learn how to remain connected to themselves during hardship. They do not abandon self-care, boundaries, or emotional awareness simply because life becomes difficult. They continue protecting their peace even during storms. This does not mean they never struggle emotionally. Some days will still feel heavy. Some moments will still hurt deeply. But they stop interpreting temporary pain as permanent destruction. They stop believing difficult seasons define their entire future. They learn endurance emotionally. There is incredible strength in continuing to move forward while healing. There is strength in remaining hopeful after disappointment. There is strength in choosing peace instead of bitterness. There is strength in trusting life again after pain tried to convince you to close your heart forever. One of the most beautiful transformations that occurs during emotional healing is becoming the safest place for yourself. Many people spend years searching for emotional safety entirely outside themselves. They depend on relationships, validation, attention, or external reassurance to feel secure. But eventually, emotional maturity teaches something deeper. The safest place you can build is within yourself. When you become emotionally grounded, you stop abandoning yourself emotionally for the comfort of others. You stop betraying your own needs, values, and boundaries to maintain acceptance. You stop relying entirely on others to regulate your emotional world. Instead, you begin learning how to comfort yourself during difficult moments. You learn how to calm your mind when anxiety rises. You learn how to validate your own emotions instead of constantly depending on reassurance from others. You learn how to stand beside yourself emotionally instead of constantly criticizing or rejecting yourself internally. This creates deep emotional security. Becoming emotionally safe for yourself means treating yourself with compassion instead of cruelty. It means protecting your peace intentionally. It means trusting your ability to survive hard seasons. It means refusing to abandon your worth even when life becomes painful. Once you become emotionally safe within yourself, relationships change too. You stop chasing emotionally unavailable people desperately. You stop accepting love that wounds you repeatedly. You stop confusing chaos with passion. You stop tolerating treatment that disturbs your peace constantly. You begin choosing relationships from strength instead of fear. Emotionally unbreakable people understand that peace is one of the most valuable things they possess. They no longer sacrifice it carelessly. They become intentional about protecting their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. They realize that healing is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming more aware, more balanced, more resilient, and more connected to themselves. This journey is not about eliminating pain completely. Pain is part of being human. The goal is not to become invulnerable. The goal is to become strong enough that pain no longer destroys your identity, your peace, or your ability to keep living fully. You are not meant to spend your life emotionally fragile, constantly fearful of heartbreak, rejection, disappointment, or uncertainty. You are capable of becoming emotionally resilient. You are capable of creating peace within yourself. You are capable of loving without losing yourself. You are capable of healing from what once hurt you deeply. There is strength inside you that life has been slowly revealing through every challenge you survived. Every painful lesson taught you something. Every heartbreak strengthened your wisdom. Every disappointment revealed your resilience. Every season of healing rebuilt pieces of yourself that pain once tried to destroy. And now, after everything you have learned, you begin stepping into a new version of yourself. A version that no longer crumbles every time life becomes difficult. A version that protects peace intentionally. A version that trusts itself deeply. A version that loves wisely, without self-abandonment. A version that remains soft-hearted, without becoming emotionally weak. A version that understands its worth, without needing constant validation. A version that no longer fears life the way it once did. This is what it means to become emotionally unbreakable. Not perfect. Not emotionless. Not untouched by pain. But strong enough to keep your peace, your identity, and your self-worth intact no matter what life brings your way. Conclusion: your peace is your power. By now, you have traveled through one of the most important journeys a person can ever take, the journey back to yourself. Not the version of yourself shaped by fear, heartbreak, rejection, emotional exhaustion, or the expectations of others, but the deeper version that exists beneath all the pain. The version that still carries strength, value, wisdom, resilience, and peace. This journey was never about becoming perfect. It was never about reaching a place where life can no longer hurt you. It was never about becoming cold, emotionless, or disconnected from the world around you. True emotional strength is something far more beautiful than perfection. It is the ability to remain grounded while life changes around you. It is the ability to keep your self-worth intact, even when people fail to recognize your value. It is the ability to experience pain without allowing pain to define your entire identity. It is the ability to continue loving, growing, healing, and believing in yourself after disappointment tried to convince you to shut down emotionally forever. Throughout this book, you have learned that emotional resilience is built, not born. Nobody enters life already emotionally unbreakable. Emotional strength is developed through healing, self-awareness, difficult lessons, painful endings, emotional honesty, and the courageous decision to continue growing even after life becomes difficult. Every chapter of your life has shaped you. The heartbreaks taught you discernment. The disappointments taught you resilience. The betrayals taught you boundaries. The losses taught you gratitude. The difficult seasons taught you endurance. Even the moments that nearly broke you revealed strength you did not know existed within you. Sometimes people look at emotionally strong individuals and assume they were simply born that way. What they often fail to realize is that strength is usually built through survival. Emotionally resilient people are often those who walked through pain, confusion, rejection, fear, loneliness and uncertainty, but refuse to let those experiences permanently destroy their spirit. That is what makes emotional healing so powerful. Healing transforms pain into wisdom. It transforms emotional chaos into emotional maturity. It transforms fear into self-trust. It transforms emotional fragility into emotional stability. Most importantly, it reconnects you to your own peace. One of the greatest truths you must carry with you moving forward is this: peace is more valuable than approval. Far too many people sacrifice their emotional well-being trying to gain acceptance from others. They abandon their boundaries to avoid rejection. They tolerate disrespect to avoid loneliness. They silence their needs to keep relationships. They shape their identity around external validation because they fear disapproval. But approval from others will never fully heal a person who constantly abandons themselves emotionally. You cannot build lasting peace while constantly betraying your own needs, values, and emotional well-being. Eventually, the emotional cost becomes too high. Anxiety increases. Resentment grows. Emotional exhaustion takes over. The soul becomes tired from trying to please everyone while neglecting itself. There comes a point where you must decide that your peace matters more than temporary acceptance. This does not mean becoming selfish or uncaring. It means valuing yourself enough to stop sacrificing your emotional health for relationships, opinions, or environments that consistently disturb your spirit. It means understanding that protecting your peace is not weakness. It is wisdom. Peace allows clarity. Peace allows healing. Peace allows healthy love. Peace allows emotional stability. Without peace, even success, relationships, and achievements can feel emotionally empty because the inner world remains unsettled. One of the most empowering things you can do is stop building your identity around how others perceive you. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will appreciate your growth. Not everyone will agree with your boundaries. Some people may even become uncomfortable when you begin protecting your peace because they benefited from versions of you that lacked self-protection. But your life cannot be built around constantly seeking permission to honor your emotional needs. You deserve peace, even if not everyone approves of the changes required to create it. At the same time, it is important to remember that emotional growth is not a destination you arrive at once and never revisit again. Emotional healing is a lifelong process. There will still be moments where old wounds try to resurface. There will still be difficult seasons that challenge your emotional stability. There may still be days when fear, sadness, loneliness, or uncertainty return unexpectedly. That does not mean you are failing. Healing is not linear. Growth is not perfect. Emotional resilience is not built through never struggling again. It is built through learning how to navigate struggles differently. The emotionally unbreakable person is not someone who never falls emotionally. It is someone who learns how to rise again without abandoning themselves every time life becomes painful. This is why consistency matters more than perfection. Some days you will feel emotionally strong and grounded. Other days may feel heavier. But every time you choose self-awareness over denial, healing over bitterness, peace over chaos, boundaries over self-betrayal, and growth over emotional stagnation, you continue strengthening yourself. Little by little, you become more emotionally stable. Little by little, your reactions become calmer. Little by little, your self-worth becomes stronger. Little by little, your peace becomes harder for the world to steal. Do not rush your healing journey. Emotional transformation takes time. Many of the wounds people carry were built over years of experiences, conditioning, disappointments, and emotional pain. Healing those wounds requires patience, compassion, and honesty with yourself. There is no shame in still healing. There is no shame in needing time to rebuild yourself emotionally. There is no shame in protecting your peace while learning how to trust life again. In fact, one of the bravest things you can do is continue healing in a world that often encourages emotional avoidance and distraction. Many people spend their entire lives running from themselves emotionally. They suppress pain, avoid reflection, and repeat unhealthy patterns because true healing requires courage. But you chose growth. You chose awareness. You chose healing. And that choice alone already places you on a different path. As you continue evolving emotionally, remember to choose self-respect over emotional chaos. There will always be people, environments, and situations that tempt you to abandon yourself emotionally again. There will always be relationships that test your boundaries. There will always be moments where emotional chaos tries to pull you back into old patterns. But you now know better. You know what emotional peace feels like. You know the cost of constantly ignoring your own needs. You know the damage caused by emotional dependence, weak boundaries, unresolved wounds, and toxic cycles. Most importantly, you now know that your emotional well-being deserves protection. Choosing self-respect may sometimes feel uncomfortable. It may require disappointing others. It may require walking away from relationships that no longer align with your peace. It may require saying no when you once said yes out of guilt or fear. It may require spending time alone while rebuilding yourself emotionally. But every act of self-respect strengthens your emotional foundation. Every healthy boundary reinforces your worth. Every decision to protect your peace reminds you that you matter too. Never forget that emotional resilience is not about becoming unreachable emotionally. It is about becoming rooted deeply enough within yourself that external storms no longer completely destroy your inner world. Life will still have difficult moments. There will still be losses, changes, disappointments, and painful experiences at times. But now you understand something powerful. Difficult moments do not have to define your identity permanently. Pain may visit, but it does not have to own you. Fear may appear, but it does not have to control you. Heartbreak may happen, but it does not have to close your heart forever. You are stronger than your worst moments. You are greater than your past pain. You are more resilient than you once believed. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this journey is realizing that the peace you spent so long searching for, externally, was always something you had the power to build within yourself. That peace becomes your strength. That peace becomes your protection. That peace becomes your foundation. When your inner world becomes peaceful, the outside world loses much of its power to shake you. You stop reacting to every emotional storm. You stop needing constant validation. You stop fearing every ending. You stop losing yourself in unhealthy relationships and external chaos. Instead, you begin living from a place of emotional grounding. You trust yourself more. You honor your worth more. You love yourself more deeply. You protect your energy more intentionally. You move through life with greater wisdom, balance, and emotional clarity. This is your power. Not perfection. Not emotional hardness. Not pretending pain does not exist. But the quiet, steady strength that comes from knowing you can survive life's challenges without losing yourself completely. As you close this book, remember this above all else: your peace is not something small. It is not weakness. It is not selfishness. Your peace is one of the most valuable things you possess. Protect it. Nurture it. Fight for it when necessary. Because a peaceful mind, a healed heart, and a grounded spirit create a kind of strength that no heartbreak, rejection, betrayal, or difficult season can permanently destroy. And that is what it truly means to become emotionally unbreakable. Thank you for reading this book. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to leave us a review. TM Light. Disclaimer. This book was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. While every effort was made to ensure the accuracy and relevance of the content, readers should note that this cannot be considered professional advice. Readers are encouraged to apply their own judgment and consult experts where needed.